What up, though, One Pride? This is the ROTL UK podcast, the podcast where One Pride goes worldwide. My name is Antony Fitzpatrick. I'm joined this evening by Ryan McCluskey, which can only mean one thing. Yes, we are back for another edition of the college football podcast, Dilly Dilfer. This is going to be the second part of our look into the American. Of course, we are doing our G5 previews at the moment, all the conferences in there. We're reaching the end of our journey now. We've done the C-USA, we've done the Sun Belt, we've done the Independents, we've been up into the land of the Mountain West, we're finishing the American off this week, and then it's just the MAC to go after this, which is going to be a lot of good fun. But before we talk about all that, we'll bring in Ryan. Ryan, how are you doing? Detroit Lions football is back. We get to witness a win the other day. How's things? How are we going on?
Yep, good, yeah. I like what I've seen so far from a lot of players on the Lions. So a good start. Carries on this weekend at a more favourable time, 6 p.m. Pre-season. Like I said, I'm surprisingly on my phone on PS5 DAZN is perfect. Like, it's actually working really well. Like I said, I know a lot of that experience. Like I say, did hear today that basically other than YouTube, outside of YouTube and people streaming games, it's going to be impossible to watch college football this year. But we'll find a way around it. For every stream they take down, 2 will pop up on YouTube. So if you're out there in Thailand, Vietnam, wherever your VPN is, just keep going. We believe in you.
Yeah, you are the true heroes, the guys who stream the college football games on YouTube. You are my heroes. I use you every single day during the season when college football is on. Please, you are doing us a great service. Yeah, we're not going to be able to get any on ESPN or anything like that over here, so gotta move to less legal routes. Although the YouTube one's pretty legal, I think, but hey-ho, who knows with that. Thank you to everyone who's joined us this evening. I see our guy Brent is in the building. He goes, it's been raining for 2 days, no fishing, just Blair. Talks about the Iowa State kickers. Oh yes, Iowa State. Their players have been betting on games like fools and getting big bans. People have gone to jail for that, Brent. Not sure whether he did particularly, but he could find himself there very quickly. Also says the Jets are going all in. Yep, they got Dalvin Cook out of free agency. Going to be interesting for them, but yeah, they look like they're making the push this year. And Brent also says, I'm betting Antony came up with the name for the show. I came up with the names for most of the shows. Yeah, I did. I thought that was a fun one this week. We're going to talk about Trent Dilfer later on. Det Fanman's in the building. Hope you are doing well, Det Fanman. And I know I've definitely seen Mike the Marine in the chat on Twitch. He says, howdy, you gay brothers. Hope you are doing well, Mike. Just going to quickly get through the housekeeping, then we're going to crack on with this. So, ROTL UK Discord, if you want in, let us know. We will send you a link. The main podcast, this week we broke down the first preseason game. We talked about another week of training camp as well, all the interviews, all the breakdowns, all that. So if you want to go and check that out, please do so. It is all good stuff. Don't forget we are to like and subscribe, everything, Twitch, YouTube, all that good stuff. We appreciate all of you who already have done. And if you're watching us for the first time and you want to support us that way, please, that would be very great indeed. We're also part of Lions Nation Unite, Herman Moore's pet project, bringing the best in Detroit Lions content creators together on one platform. Content for the fans, created by the fans. And don't forget, we are monetized on YouTube. We're a Twitch affiliate, all that good stuff. So if you want to support us that way, that's great. But we just enjoy having you in the building. Right, that is all out. So let's just crack on with this evening, because we've got a little bit to go through. So as we said, this is going to be the second part of our look into the American, the latest in our G5 conference previews. Last week we talked about the first 7 teams: Charlotte, East Carolina, Florida Atlantic, Memphis, Navy, North Texas and Rice. And we're going to be looking at the back end of the conference, alphabetically speaking, at least this week. So we're going to be taking a look at SMU, South Florida, Temple, Tulane, Tulsa, UAB, which is the University of Alabama, Birmingham, and UTSA, which is the University Texas San Antonio. We've got two current conference champions amongst that lot. There's a lot to get into, so let us dive straight down into it. I just need to get down to our first team, who I said was SMU. I've got 76 pages altogether of stuff I've done here, so just gotta find my way down. Oh, South Florida. Oh my word, where are we? This is an absolutely wonderful start to the show. Sorry guys, I lost my notes. I knew that I should have stayed on this beforehand. Here we go. It's because I've called them by their actual name. So let's crack on. The first team on our agenda this evening, the Southern Methodist University Mustangs, also known as SMU in short. Established 1915, they play in the Gerald J. Ford Stadium. Their 2021 season, they went 8-4. They were 4-4 in the ACC. 2022 saw a reduction in the overall number. They went 7-6. However, they did get better in conference. They went 5-3 in the ACC. They have the massive rivalry with TCU. Obviously, coaches crossed borders, and that last season TCU went to the playoffs. That is a very heated rivalry there. They've also got rivalries with North Texas, Navy, and Rice. The coach here, Rhett Lashley, it is his second season. He is 40 years old. He had the difficult challenge of replacing the departed Sonny Dykes, who, as I mentioned, crossed battle lines and went to TCU and took them to the college football playoffs in year one. Lashley didn't have quite the same success with SMU, but it was a good season nonetheless. He's an offensively minded coach. He gained a lot of experience before making the jump up to head coach, and he's a guy who looks to outscore opponents rather than subdue them. So you'll get a lot of big scoring games with him. He spent a decade in the same role as OC and quarterbacks coach at a number of teams, including Samford, Arkansas State, Auburn, UConn, SMU, and the Miami Hurricanes before coming back to SMU to take on his first head coaching job. He had worked under Dykes previously. They had the same offensive philosophy, meaning the transition period for this team was not bad at all between coaches. As I said, the overall record was a win worse, but they improved their American record. They lost only to the conference's top teams, so they were sort of best of the rest in the middle here. They also won that 140-point thriller against Houston that you'll remember, and he actually became the first SMU head coach since 1982 in his first season with the team to have a winning record and go bowling. However, UCF, Houston, and Cincy are gone now, and coming into this season, the preseason roster strength rankings in the American for this team, they are number 2 on offense, they're number 1 on defense. They are going to be one of the front runners wanting to fill that power void at the top. And like East Carolina, as we were talking about the other week with Holton Ahlers, Lashley's going to have to do it without his former star quarterback. But in terms of Lashley and SMU, Ryan, it was decent first year for him, considering he had some big expectations to fill after Sonny Dykes left.
On offense, yeah. Defense is still absolutely rank. Some of the SMU football I watched is some of the worst football I've seen in years. Especially on defense, it was just bad. And if they're bringing back a lot of that, I don't know how I feel about that, if I'm honest. But yeah, they've lost their star receiver and their star quarterback, so he's really got his back up against the wall this year. We're going to see how good a coach he is, because when he came in, the program was stable. And like I say, it had their 2 main weapons. They've now both gone. So I'm interested to see how he develops. Like I say, can they keep going with like splash air raid football with a QB that doesn't know the system and know like wide receiver 1? So this will be a big year for him. Like I say, he's still young. I think this year we're going to see how good he is at managing with what he's got and developing talent, because he hasn't now got that people that were already in the program to kind of fall back on.
Yeah, and this is going to be one of the programs that wants to fill that gap at the top. They're on the periphery like East Carolina, and it's just come at the worst time for them because they've lost their main guys in there. Brent, we'll talk about Jim Harbaugh at the end. We'll do other bits once this is all done. So in terms of the 2022 record, the wins were away at North Texas, at home to Lamar and Navy, away at Tulsa, at home to Houston, at USF, and versus Memphis. The losses at Maryland, versus TCU, at UCF, versus Cincinnati, at Tulane, and then versus BYU in the bowl game. So 2 Power 5 defeats. They lost against the top 3 ranked teams in the conference, and then they lost to BYU in the bowl game. So they lost a lot of the big games there. And as Ryan has already so succinctly mentioned, beautiful to watch on offense, atrocious to watch on defense, and that is backed up by the stats. In total offense, they were 14th in the nation, 472.8 yards per game. Total defense, they were 112th, so nearly 100 places difference. They gave up 431.2 yards per game. Similar story. Scoring offense, they were 12th. They put up 37.2 points per game, but the scoring defense, 119th. They gave up just under 34 points per game. The rushing offense was 65th, so middle of the pack, 156 yards a game, 26 touchdowns, 4.1 yards per carry. But the rushing defense, that was 120th. They gave up over 200 yards per game, 203.6 to be precise, 30 touchdowns, and a smidge under 5 yards per carry. The passing offense was 7th, 316.7 yards per game and 36 touchdowns. You would expect that. Passing defense was 73rd, 227.5 yards per game, 25 touchdowns. The team in sacks was 78th with just 27, and tackles for loss was 97th with just 65, so the D-line got work to do. But in sacks allowed, they were 40th. They only gave up 21. And tackles for loss allowed, they were 47th. They gave up 67. Turnover margin, they were 80th. They gained 18. And they lost 20. So it's kind of a theme with this league, right? A lot of Jekyll and Hyde teams here, one way or the other. And as SMU would know for years, very Jekyll on the offense, very Hyde on the defense.
I actually think this is an opportunity for them to restore the power of balance, because they've realised by now that all offence, it's not really got them anywhere, has it, in the last 2 or 3 years? They've won games, but they've been beaten by all the good teams because they stopped their offence and their defence was hot trash. So I think this year, focus on much less offence and try to fix the defence. And they will actually find more success probably than trying to beat every team 45-40, because the good teams could hold them to 20 points in that defence. It was like a wet paper bag. It was not good. So I think actually this could be a blessing in disguise. What's going to happen this season? Go back to basics a little bit. I think they need to.
Yeah, definitely. It is a team that needs to change, like say, the philosophy. So with that said, let's have a look at what holds in store for 2023. So the quarterback, Preston Stone, he is 6'1", 209 pounds. He is the highest rated recruit in SMU history. He was number 111 in the 2021 recruiting class. That might sound low, but given how many thousands of players are in these classes, this was a big get for them. He's had to wait patiently for 2 years behind the departed Tanner Mordecai, who went berserk. He's thrown for 7,152 yards and 72 touchdowns over the last 2 years. Stone's had little chance to break in thus far. He had 388 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception last season. He's known for his ability as a big playmaker from his high school days. He can work excellently outside the pocket if it breaks down. SMU have deliberately been grooming him as Mordecai's successor, and he comes with real pedigree. Let's say, highest rated recruit in the history of the team. So the hope is his experience learning on the side, it'll quickly transition when he plays more regularly. This is a guy who's had Power 5 offers. He's turned them down, stayed loyal to the team. Not much experience, right? But it's always good to have this back up in the bag. He's got the pedigree there. They've just kind of got to unlock it. And like you say, if they're going to balance this offense out, maybe the perfect time to put him in there.
Yeah, he's had time to sit and watch, learn what to do, learn not what to do. I think they'll use him a bit differently. If this kid's going to get asked to throw the ball, 40 to 60 times, Tanner was literally throwing like 55 times a game sometimes, and his percentage and his accuracy would sometimes fall off a cliff. I I don't think that's how you throw in a new starter. If they ask him to do that, you're more than likely going to sink rather than swim. So I think, yeah, it's going to be maybe like some RPOs, some shorter stuff, try establish the run game, because Tanner Mordecai, with no disrespect, one of the least mobile quarterbacks I've seen for years. The guy could not run. He looked every bit of being like 25, 26 years old. He was clunky. So this kid might have a little bit more in that department, being a bit more dual threat, which could actually work to his favour. But yeah, like I say, being top 150 player in a recruiting class usually means you're pretty good. Like I say, if he's a top like 30, 40 quarterback, then they may already have their future here. Be interesting to see what he's learned. But yeah, he's got big shoes to fill. Like I say, inside the quarterback position, they've had a lot of good receivers last year, a couple of years. Like say Ross Rice, but before that they have Reggie Roberson and Trey. I can't remember. There was a tandem there. They've gone, so they've got quite a good repertoire now of history of like producing good draft receivers. So he's going to need a buddy, like someone that he can click with pretty quickly. So yeah, a lot of things need to go his way this year.
Yeah, they do, and like we've seen with so many programs, they lose their star for so many years, and then you just can't quite recover it. But this guy's got the pedigree, which a lot of them don't have. So it'll be interesting to see how Preston Stone does. In terms of the season preview for the team in general, it is time for the Mustangs to shine and show themselves to be among the new leaders in the American, and maybe for a certain ailing Pac-12, but we'll get back to that another time. Lashley's bedded in now, and very interestingly, they've brought in a loaded Power 5 portal group. This is a group who are in to win now. Some of them have only got 1 year left. They know their opportunity to go out and do it is this time. And he's got the talent on the team, but can he make a run this year? 2023, like Rad said, it's a serious test of his credentials this year as to just how far he can take this team. Preston Stone, all the attributes and skill needed to keep the offense running at Mordecai levels. But they've got a sneaky running back room to complement him this year with all that air traffic. So you have Tyler Levine. He had 10 touchdowns on the ground, 650 yards last season. They've brought in Jalen Knighton from the Miami Hurricanes. He's had 1,000 rushing yards over the last 2 seasons with them. So that's a lot of Power 5 experience. He's an elite speed back with some serious Power 5 experience. And he might be the lead back sooner rather than later. They've also brought in LJ Johnson. He had a pair of rushing touchdowns for Texas A&M last season. He's looking to be starter himself. So they've got 3 in the room potentially really good there. As Ryan mentioned, lead receiver Rashee Rice, he's gone, drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll be seeing him in the NFL against the Lions soon, but the rest of the starters and the depth are back, which is the most key thing. They've brought in Jordan Hudson from TCU. He had 3 touchdowns for them last season. He was part of the rotation. They're looking at him as maybe the new guy there. You've got in Keyshawn Smith, who's come from the Miami Hurricanes again. He's got 5 touchdowns last season for them playing in rotation. They've bought another one from the Hurricanes, Romello Brinson. He's seen snaps in the rotation as well. So the wide receiver core has a lot of potential to tap into rather than production on the field so far. But they've brought in some very talented guys. They've got really good tight end in RJ Maryland. He had 6 touchdowns last year. So the guys are there for him to throw to. The offensive line is seeing the biggest turnover though. They had a very decent outing in 2022. They've got a huge 6'8" left tackle in Marcus Bryant. Got 3rd-year starting centre Branson Hickman. They've got an all-star right guard in Justin Osborne. He is starting his 4th season. There's vacancies at left guard and right tackle. But again, they've gone to the portal big time with this. They've got in Hiron White from Missouri in the SEC. He was a starter at right tackle for them in 2021, but he missed 2022 to injury, but he's fully healthy. He's going to walk straight into that job there. And then they've also brought in Ja'Kai Clark. He's a 4-year starter with the Miami Hurricanes in the Power 5. He had 1 season at right guard, 1 season at left guard, and they spent the last 2 at centre. So I don't know how they've managed to nab a 4-year starter from there, but they have. They've brought in Caleb Johnson. He's another offensive tackle from Notre Dame. He redshirted last year. And they've got a few other guys. Logan Parr has been at Texas. He's had peripheral snaps at left guard. They've got PJ Wilson from Texas A&M. So, I mean, that offensive line room is loaded with current talent and new transfers coming in. They're really taking it seriously this year. The defense, that needs a sharp kick up the ass. And Lashley's hit the portal hard for talent to freshen things up around some good building blocks. You got Nelson Paul at edge. He had 5 sacks last year. That was the leader on the team. They've brought in another Miami Hurricane, Elijah Roberts. He was part of the rotation for the Hurricanes last year. They've got freshman All-American Cam Robertson from North Texas. He had a really good first year for the Mean Green. He's in as well. The interior gets help. Another transfer from Miami, 315-pound Jordan Miller, the nose tackle. He's coming in to help anchor the line against the run. And they got some good pieces there. Elijah Chapman, he had 3 sacks, 4 tackles for loss last year in the interior. And they've got most of the depth back, so the D-line potentially in good shape. And they also brought in Corey Roberson from Oklahoma to add further depth to the interior room as well. Linebacker room's got a refreshing thanks to the portal. They poached Kobe Wilson from Temple. He's been a mainstay in the rotation for 2 years now there. He's had nearly 800 snaps with them, so that's an in-conference that's an in-conference get there. He's a great blitzer, but he's also a good run blocker as well. Graded out really well in both. They got starting Liberty linebacker Ahmed Walker as well. He had 5 sacks last season. He's got great pass rushing potential, but he's another do-it-all guy. And then they've got their own guy, Jaquandis Burns. So, again, linebacker room looks to be really good, looks to have the depth to it. And the secondary has plenty of talent as well. Even if the stats lines say otherwise, with the D-line not producing much pressure, sometimes even good secondaries get picked on. Safety group, you've got 2 experienced starters, Brian Massey and Brandon Crossley. They've got a starting Power 5 safety coming in. Jonathan McGill comes in from, I think it was Stanford. I forgot to put his team there, but he was starting last year. He gave up just 22 catches on 40 targets last year. He graded at like 74 on over 700 snaps. They got starting Liberty safety Robert Rahimi. So that room is crazy deep with starting talent from Power 5, Group of 5, and from their own team. Corner room has been gutted, but for the better. They've got a lot more talent coming in. So you've got 6th year corner Charles Woods. He's coming in from West Virginia. He's got 2,000 snaps at college level. He's going to be the veteran leader. He's played at FCS and FBS level. You've got Chris Megginson. He's a 3-year starter coming in from Liberty. He's improved every single year. Only gives up 56% on his targets, 14 pass breakups. Cale Sanders had 700 snaps in 2 years with Fresno State. He's coming off a championship winning season where he played over 400 snaps for the Bulldogs. You've got Keyshawn Mills coming from Colorado, Kyron Chambers from TCU, Jalen Davy Robinson from LSU. These are all high-level guys looking for an opportunity in the Group of 5. So you've got plenty of veteran experience here. You've got a lot of untapped potential. The offense is probably going to be pretty good again, and the defense has the ability to make big steps here, Ryan. They're serious about going out and winning it this year with these type of guys they've brought in.
Yeah, if you're going to bring in a lot of seniors and juniors, that tells me that you've got a 1-year window. Because a lot of these players could be got. You're going to have a big amount of turnover again next year. They're going all out to try help their young quarterback, and they've realised that now everyone's kind of buggered off. They've got to step up. They've got to be a front runner this year, and for this head coach to be successful and to shake off the disciple of Sonny Dykes kind of tag that he's currently got, be his own man, he's got to win, and he has to win quick. Like I say, so he's brought in a lot of guys that will have aspirations of trying to win the AAC and could be gone next year. So seeing how they all gel, that's going to be interesting. They can't afford any to start too slowly. So if they get up and running pretty quickly, then maybe this team will do something.
Yeah, and the schedule sets up perfectly for them. So I'll quickly say hi to Grandizer. He says, Hilly ho lads, Dilly Dilly. I knew Grandizer would like the Dilly Dilly. That's why I did it. So the schedule sets up really well for them. Don't play week 0. Your non-con is at home to Louisiana Tech, away at Oklahoma, versus Prairie View A&M, and then at TCU. But then your conference, you're at home to Charlotte, then you get a bye. You're away at East Carolina and Temple. You're at home to Tulsa. You're away at Rice. You're at home to North Texas, away at Memphis, and then at home to Navy. I mean, that home schedule, Charlotte, Tulsa, North Texas, Navy, that's really good. And then away from home, East Carolina are rebuilding, Temple are not great, Rice are not great, Memphis are struggling. That's a schedule set up for them to potentially run it if they wanted to.
Yeah, it's a good schedule. That TCU game will be circled already. That TCU team has been gutted by the draft. They've also might have a hangover of like CMA Championship. I think SMU are going to take it. They're going to try go all out to win it this year. TCU are rebuilding. They've lost a lot of their big building blocks. A lot of them hit the draft, went to XFL, CFL, USFL. So I think SMU are going to like their chances this year. But yeah, home, it's not a bad schedule at all. In conference, they should be really competitive, and that should stand them in good stead to try make a championship game. So yeah, they're definitely one of the teams to watch.
Oh yeah, absolutely. In terms of the conference this year, they're one of the ones going for it for sure. The player to watch I've got here, the linebacker Ahmed Walker. He's 5'11", 215 pounds. He's the transfer from Liberty. So he's transferring in from a defense. That Liberty defense has been absolutely dominant on the line of scrimmage last year. Up until that little meltdown at the end of the year, it was one of the best in the country, and it's in part down to having guys like him. They're playing at that outside linebacker role. They overwhelm opponents who are buckling under D-line pressure. He's got 7 sacks, 16.5 tackles for loss over the last 2 years as a linebacker. That sort of production is going to be critical for a team that's in dire need of more quarterback pressures. And they've really invested in this area of the team. Walker's got the potential to be that guy who helps SMU get into the backfield and start making more plays there. His stock is on the rise, and if he wins the championship, it's going to go even higher. I expect him to do very well this year. So Ahmed Walker, the linebacker from the SMU Mustangs, he is the guy to watch this year. Right, let's move it on, and we're going from the good to the really ugly. We've got the South Florida Bulls, also known as USF. Established in 1997. They play at the Raymond James Stadium, if that sounds familiar. Yeah, it is that stadium. 2021 season, they were 2-10. They went 1-7 in the AAC. In 2022, they somehow got worse. They went 1-11, and they went 0-8 in the AAC. The rivalry, in name only, really, is with UCF. It's called the War on I-4. It's quite a new one because South Florida are a relatively new team. UCF lead the series 8-6. They've won the last 6 in a row. USF were really dominant against them when it first started, but not in recent years. Coach, another one of our newbies. A lot of newbies in the American this year. Alex Golesh. He is 39. It is his first season. And it's his first season as a head coach as well. This is another offensively minded coach. This is a theme. The American has mostly offensively minded head coaches, and it shows. He started in the mid-2000s as a student assistant at Ohio State and a grad assistant at Northern Illinois and Oklahoma State. Then he got into positional coaching at Toledo, first with running backs, then tight ends. He was recruiting coordinator. Then he got the same job at Illinois. Moved to Iowa State in 2016, and that's when the success really started coming for him. He produced all conference performers 3 years in a row, and in his last year, a certain named Charlie Kohler and Chase Allen swept up both all Big 12 tight end awards. Charlie Kohler got a little love from Lions fans in the draft process this year. He got a bump up to co-OC and tight ends coach at UCF on the back of that, and he was part of that 2020 UCF offense that ranked 2nd in the nation in total offense and 4th in passing offense. They were 7th in total passing yards. They were 8th in scoring offense. That was a wonderful year for the Knights and a wonderful offense. He followed his head coach Josh Hoople over to Tennessee in 2021. There he was given full OC status, and we all know what has happened since. Yes, he was the guy who's masterminded that Tennessee offense. He helped shatter 8 single-season team records, including points, total offensive yards, touchdowns, PATs made, total first downs, rushing first downs, fewest interceptions, passing efficiency. The scoring offense for Tennessee went from 108th to 7th. He took the positional unit up over 100 spots. This sustained success has landed him his first head coaching gig, but this is a tough assignment. He's taking over a disastrous spell by Jeff Scott, who went 4-26 in 3 years, and he had a 1-19 conference record, the last year of which precipitated a mass exodus when it was over. So at the end of last year, all the players left. Scott was fired after 9 games, and the special teams coordinator who was put in his place went 0-3 in relief. I mean, this is a team that can compete. Between 2015 and 2018, they had 36 wins. They've just fallen on very hard times at the minute. They need a massive culture and talent reset. Is Golesh going to be that guy? It's interesting here, Ryan. He's on a hot streak at the minute. He has created some of the best offenses to watch in college football the last few years. But this, make no mistake, this is a team that is starting from rock bottom.
Oh yeah, he's staking his whole reputation coming here. It's one of those point chalices that I wouldn't take a sip from. You won't catch me trying to be the Bolts head coach. It's been dreadful for years. And yeah, their brand of football now has been ugly. They've struggled with quarterbacks, they've struggled across the board with positions, coaches, culture. Everything that has and could go wrong has gone wrong. And yeah, he's one of the better offensive minds in the country. He's going to want to come in, try and make us stamp or implement his kind of brand of football on them. That won't be easy because that requires a certain type of personnel, of a certain type of standard. But if he can turn it round, then he will be a head coach in the SEC probably pretty quickly. The fastest route to the top sometimes is going all the way to the bottom rung of the ladder. That's pretty much where he is because they are a bottom feeder in the AAC.
Yeah, this is massive. You know, this is going to take a long time to sort out. But as I say, it can be done. Yes, Brent, I did learn how to say Toledo. Thank you very much for that. Yes, Ryan's just sorting his camera angle out. You're tilted, Ryan, at the minute. So, but it's fun. He's MC Escher, Ryan. That's what he's doing. He's all over the place, but it's good fun. So the 2022 team, the wins. Oh, the sole win came against Howard, which is FCS opposition. They lost to BYU, Florida, Louisville, East Carolina, Cincinnati, Tulane, Houston. Christ, this was a bad schedule. Temple, SMU, Tulsa, and UCF. I mean, oh, good Lord. That was a gauntlet. That was a nasty year for them. No wonder they didn't win that many games. The 2022 stats, so total offense, they were 64th. So they're not bad on offense, 390 yards per game. Total defense, they were last in the nation, 131st. They gave up 516.6 yards per game. And this gets no better. The scoring offense was 68th. So again, solid, 28 points per game. The scoring defense, they moved up one spot. They were 130th. They gave up 41.1 points per game, so 41-point handicap there. The rushing offense was actually really good. It was 27th. They had just a smidge under 200 yards per game, 25 touchdowns, and they went at 5.4 yards per carry, so good running defense there. But the rushing defense was awful. It was 129th. You see, we're going up by one spot here. 131st, 130th, 129th. They gave up 235 yards per game, 37 touchdowns, and over 6 yards per carry. Passing offense was 108th, 192 yards per game, 18 touchdowns. Passing defense was 124th. We're starting to get high now. 222 yards per game, 25 touchdowns. I mean, in team sacks, they were 129th. They only had 14 all year. Team tackles for loss, they were 90th. They only had 62. In sacks allowed, they were 19th. They only gave up 14, but missed them. They were having 240 yards ran down their throat every game. Teams didn't need to sack them very often. And tackles for loss allowed, they were 38th. They only gave up 58th. So the offensive line actually wasn't that bad. Turnover margin was, though. It was 97th. They gained 16. They lost 20. That historically bad defense, Ryan. When you are giving up 516 yards and 41 points per game, you're only going to win against FCS teams. That's just the way it is.
Not even against most FCS teams. Like, God, how bad must Howard be?
Yeah.
This is probably one of the worst defenses since the millennium. Since 2000, there can't be many historically worse defenses. That's bad. It's abysmal. If you just sit there with your head in your hands, like that's pathetic. And like, oof, that is good. An offensive head coach as well. An offensive mind's coming in and going to have to try somehow fix that.
Yeah. I hope he's got a good mate who knows how to coach defense. But yeah, that was just ugly across the board, and I feel sorry for South Florida's offense. You can't really do anything. It was decent. It was just decent, but no way you're going to make up for that. Brent goes, where's the DC now? Well, if there's any justice in the world, Brent, he'll be in jail for crimes against football. But kind of doesn't happen that way, does it? So we will see. But let's look towards the future, and let's see if there's any more positivity in there. The quarterback. Same guy as last year. Me and Ryan love this guy very much. We love to talk about him, at least. We don't really love him per se. But Jerry Bohannon, probably the quarterback this year. He's 6'3", 226 pounds. It's his second season at USF, but he's about to start his 6th year in college. He spent the first 4 with Baylor, but he only got the starting gig in year 4, and he lost that before the end of the season to Blake Shappen. Last year never really got going for him after 4 games, and this includes the game against Howard. He was sporting an 0-6 touchdown to interception ratio. He'd not thrown a touchdown pass. He did recover over the next 3 games. He flipped it to 6-0, but then he got knocked out by a shoulder injury for the rest of the season just as he was getting going. He had 1,000 passing yards, 6 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 400 yards on the ground with 2 touchdowns and 3 fumbles. The team is going to be a brand new offense. It can use an experienced hand to guide it, but he'll be under pressure. He wasn't able to throw over the spring because of the injury. He is still recovering. So in his place, talented redshirt freshman Byron Brown started. He was 4th on the depth chart to start the year, but he ended up impressing in the last 2 games. And then they've brought in a second redshirt freshman, Bryce Archie from Coastal Carolina, and he is on the hunt. But if he's fit, it's probably going to be Jerry, but he's just not had a great career, really, Jerry Bohannon, has he? It's not really worked out for him.
Without sounding mean, I kind of hope he's not the starter. I hope he's fit, but I really don't want him to start. We've seen enough. We know what Jerry Bohannon's all about. Give one of the kids a chance. I know sometimes it's nice to have a veteran quarterback to come in and implement your scheme with, but they can do better. And even an inexperienced, like you say, kid straight out of high school might actually be on top of what Jerry did last year. So if he does win the job and he does start, I would like to wager that he doesn't keep the job that long. Yeah. I can see him getting usurped fairly quickly, especially if he goes 0-6 again in that ratio through 4 weeks.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's got one of the most tenuous starting jobs in this conference, so I'm with you. I don't think we'll see him by the end of the year. If you're going to blow it all up, start it with a brand new quarterback when he's young, get him experience, get his mistakes out of the system, do it that way. So the season preview in general, as I mentioned, Golesh has inherited next to nothing. He has had to substantially raid the portal just to fill out his roster. This is the beginning of a big rebuild for the offensive mastermind. Year 1, in these situations, it's all about finding as much stability with the roster as possible. How many players can you find who are going to stay and be part of your team going forward, who are good? But if he can implement his Tennessee-style offense quickly, the schedule does make allowances for multiple wins to lay a good starting foundation for him. So the offense, Bohannon, if healthy, is likely the starter. It's a decent start, but who's going to be protecting him? The right guard, Justin Hall, transferred to East Carolina. The left guard, Demetrius Harris, he's trying out in the NFL. The center, Brad Cecil, remember his name, he's with the Detroit Lions right now, but probably not for much longer. The left tackle, DeMontre Jacobs, is with the Broncos. So, you know, a lot of their guys have gone. The left tackle, Donovan Jennings, has started nearly all his career with the Bulls. He's had injury issues last year. He's back, though. He's heading into year 6. He has nearly 2,500 snaps, so he's at least the quarterback's got a reliable left tackle. He's given up just 6 sacks and 9 quarterback hits in over 1,350 pass protection snaps. So he's actually pretty good. The other tackle is occupied by Darrell Bailey Jr. He came in due to injury. He looked pretty well last year. Mike Lofton is the guard tackle hybrid. He's likely going to be at the right guard spot. But the interior is going to be mostly new and with guys who don't have much experience. So you've got Zane Herring coming in from Florida State. He was their right guard. You've got RJ Perry at left tackle. He's coming in from Tennessee, so he's followed Golesh over. And Derek Bowman played a handful of snaps at center for Houston. In the running back room, they've lost their 1,000-yard rusher Brian Batty to Auburn. Their promising depth piece Jaron Mangum to Michigan State. And the remaining starter Michael Jukes is suspended from the team due to an arrest. So transfers are going to form the backbone of this room. They got a Naquan Wright from Florida. He's been on the periphery there for 4 years. And they brought in Dominic Ganella. He has 1,100 yards in 3 seasons at North Dakota State in the FCS. But at the minute, they don't really have a true volume carrier with big career production. The receiver room is nearly all gone. The top 2 receivers, Jimmy Horn and Xavier Weather, both transferred to Colorado. They had 3 other depth guys transfer out as well. They lost 3 tight ends to the portal. The only guy that's left is Sean Atkins. He had 230 yards and 3 touchdowns last year. Now, they do bring in some good talent guys. So Naeem Simmons comes up to the FBS via Wagner. He had 810 yards and 6 touchdowns last season. Michael Brown Simmons has 750 receiving yards in the Big Ten with Minnesota. Over 2 seasons, you've got Jaden Alexis coming from Texas, Seth Jones coming from Baylor, Tegan Martin from Liberty, and you've got Weston Wolf, the Maryland tight end, coming in as well. So it's all new guys. Gotta hope some of them hit. The good news for the defense, it returned 70% of its production from last year. The bad news is it was the worst in the country, so you kind of got to hope that experience aspect drives just some natural improvement this year. The new DC is Todd Orlando. You may have heard of him before. He's a guy, he plays a go big or go home aggressive style of defense. It struggled at Florida Atlantic where he was last year, but he'd only been there 1 season, so there's only so much you can do in a year. The first 2 levels are getting a lot of help through the portal. So they've brought in a 320-pound nose tackle from TCU by the name of Doug Blue Eli. He's going to be tasked with helping to fix the mammoth leak this team has against the run. They got a natural DT there, Rashad Shaney Jr. He should be able to do some more pass rush work with Blue Eli in the building now. You got Bernard Goodman. He had over 100 snaps for Wake Forest last year. And you got rotational defensive tackle Emmanuel Hickman coming from East Carolina to give some depth to the room. But again, not bona fide starters, but potential. Edge room is led by Jason Vaughn. He had 5 sacks last season, but there's no returning production as far as pass rush goes after him. And again, it's transfers. They've brought in Rico Watson from Robert Morris. He had a really good season there with them. Should give Vaughn some good company. But they do have a good linebacker unit at least. You've got Lloyd Summerall coming from Florida, DJ Harris coming from Texas. They both bring in Power 5 experience. So you've got some good stuff there. So they've lost their standout linebacker Dwayne Boyles to eligibility. He's gone. Antonio Greer's gone to Arkansas. Davon Hicks has gone to UConn. So that's the linebacker room gutted. But they do have a good backup guy in DJ Gordon. He's going to step up into the leadership void this year. He had a really good 2022. They've got a good emerging hybrid linebacker in Jonathan Ross. They managed to somehow get starting Florida Atlantic linebacker Jamie Petway as well. He's followed Todd Orlando across. and they've brought in Andrew Mata'afa from Utah. I was about to say Utah. He's played rotational snaps there, so they've got some good linebackers in, but it's an entirely new room, and they have got to bed in there. Secondary enjoyed trial by fire, has had no help from the D-line. It returns most of its starters. Amaris Brown stands out at corner. He's been given help. They've brought in Braxton Clark from Nebraska, Kendall Dennis from Oklahoma. Both have Power 5 experience. And they've got a good pair of safeties in Tamarcus Simpson and Jaden Curry. But overall, right, this is a transfer-heavy team, which you would expect from a guy in year one. This is going to take time to bed in. It might not be pretty to begin with.
No. I say sometimes too much of a good thing is bad for you. So also sometimes too much of a bad thing is really bad for you. Returning a historically bad defence, they really need some of those transfers to come in and usurp some of them, because you kind of need to get rid of the stench. Yeah, this first year is going to be bad. Probably just as bad. I think it'll be really bad. But it might mean year two is much better. Like I say, you've got to find some foundations to build on. So they're looking at the guys that they've brought in out of the portal. No household names, all very much untested. But at least one of them has to come good, improve the bottom for a reason, and do better than someone who's here last year. So, yeah, if they can just improve marginally the defense, then at least the offense just going to have to do a little bit less.
Yeah.
So they don't have to improve anything drastically, just get a little bit better, and they will help the team win, or they will help the offense out a massive bunch.
Yeah, I think this is a classic example of expect nothing and you may be slightly surprised, but it's going to be a tough year. Don't expect to hear much good coming out of this straight away, but we could be surprised. So the schedule, they don't play week 0. The non-con, they're away at Western Kentucky, at home to Florida A&M, and at home to Alabama. That one could be fun for them. But the conference games, they're at home to Rice, away at Navy, away at UAB, at home to Florida Atlantic. They're away to UConn in the non-con, away at Memphis, at home to Temple, away at UTSA, and at home to Charlotte. Now, that away schedule is kind of grim, but I mean, you've got Charlotte, Temple, Rice at home. There's opportunities there for them to at least win a couple of games and establish something this year, if you do well at home.
Yeah, there's a few teams that are rebuilding. Like, say, Rice have torn it all down and brought in one of the least convincing quarterbacks you could possibly get. That does work in other teams' favours. And then, yeah, like say Florida A&M, like, yeah, okay, but you'd like to think on their day should be able to handle them. So there's 3 or 4 wins there if they want to get them. If they want to match last season's win total or improve it, it is possible. It won't all be complete doom and gloom. The Bama, that will be a bloodbath. That will be bad.
Yeah, that'll be where they'll have pulled the starters at half time.
Yeah, they'll know that one's a write off. But yeah, this one is definitely a settling in year.
Yeah,
I think performances will matter much more. I don't think they'll even care that much about results. Performances will be far more important.
Yeah, just bring that. At least if you bring it down to like 400 yards a game or something, it's still a lot, but it's not. It's a big enough improvement to show something there.
20-30 plays easily if you.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Down.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Brent goes, sounds like a 500 schedule. No, yeah, they're going to win 1 or 2 games this year probably. I think that's maybe it for them, because even UConn are going to smack them. You know, UConn are not the pushover they once used to be anymore. Brent goes, what was the new DC's rank last year? I think, from what I remember, Todd Orlando, his defense in Florida Atlantic was about 94th. It wasn't great, but again, it was his first year there, so it's kind of hard to judge a DC on 1 year of production, especially the way he plays. All I know is it'll be aggressive as anything. That's how he plays. He'll just blitz all the time, and with them having some decent linebackers, he's probably not going to go away from that there. So the player to watch to finish this off, the cornerback Amaris Brown. He's 5'10", 197 pounds. He's a junior this year. He had 2 interceptions, 7 pass breakups last year, and a passing defense that was brutally picked on, and this team is desperately going to need playmakers to help turn the ball over again this season. He's a senior leader on the defense, hoping to take big steps forward this season, and if he does, he probably will fast be the best defensive player on this team. So he's one of the names to watch out for. The only thing he needs to work on, a 32% missed tackle rate, needs addressing. So if he can sort that, he'll be in good step next year. So that's the cornerback, Amaris Brown. For USF there. Right, let us move it on. And from one team who's rebuilding to another team who is rebuilding, but rebuilding in a positive direction. So we've got the Temple Owls, established 1894. They play at Lincoln Financial Field. In 2021, they went 3-9. They were 1-7 in the AAC. In 2022, they went 3-9. And they were 1-7 in the AAC, so no change there. The rivalries, in-state rivalry with Penn State, but Penn State lead 40-4-1. It's more just a game that's played, and they have a rivalry with Villanova as well, the basketball school. It's called the Mayor's Cup. Villanova actually lead that series as well, but I don't think they have a football team at the minute, so they do not play one another. The coach here, Stan Drayton, he is 52. This is his second season. Highly experienced running backs coach, having held that position on 13 different teams. He has mentored and developed the likes of Carlos Hyde and Ezekiel Elliott. He's also got NFL experience, had 3 years at Green Bay as offensive quality control coach and special teams coach, and at the Chicago Bears as a running backs coach. His last job, 4 years with the Texas Longhorns. He was assistant head coach, running back coach, run game coordinator, so he had been preparing for a top job. And this Temple job he took over was a massive undertaking. The team had won 2 conference games in the preceding 2 years. They have really struggled to return to the sunnier days that were seen under one Matt Rule in the 10s some time ago now. He had one of the toughest schedules going last season and a roster strength that ranked 118th in the nation. And despite the record, there were improvements last year. You're starting to see this bear through. In addition to the 3 wins they had, they nearly beat Rutgers. And, you know, say all you want about Rutgers, but a Power 5 scalp is a Power 5 scalp. And they ran Houston, Navy, and East Carolina close in conference games. And most importantly, he's found himself a quarterback, which is vital to a team like this. Drayton now needs to build on that in year 2 as they look to try and threaten bowl contention. So yeah, Drayton, another one. This is kind of like we've just said about, you know, USF this year. This was Drayton 12 months ago, took over a job which, you know, Temple have not been good since Matt Rule left. Trial by fire year 1, but promising. They were not getting blown out all the time, and they were still winning games, so this might just be working right.
Yeah, there's different ways to lose games. Like I say, Temple losing games and USF losing games, not comparable whatsoever. One was in games and just falling short. The other was like getting beaten by like bloody 3-4 scores. There is things, there's hope. If I remember on Twitter as well, I think the Temple Owls football team has got a brand new snazzy badge as well. I'm pretty sure I saw it last week. I believe they've got a new logo. So they're trying to jazz things up a bit. They're trying to distance themselves from the post-rule era. So yeah, they've got a quarterback. That's half the battle. We've mentioned 2 teams right now that so far don't have their quarterback or don't think they've got the quarterback. So that already puts them ahead of some of our rebuilding sides. So that's half the battle. And yeah, like I say, they pushed teams far. They went toe-to-toe with Rutgers. They made life hard for some other stronger opponents. They're trending in the right direction. You will see the fruits of their labour this year, I'm sure. Whether that's 5 or 6 wins, getting a bowl game, it's certainly doable.
Absolutely. I think bowl game, you know, this year is perfectly within the reach. Lisa Del Lorenzo's in the building. She says, hi, everyone. Hi, Lisa. Hope you are doing well. Good to see you in here, as always. So the record last year, the wins came all at home to Lafayette, UMass, and South Florida. The losses were away at Duke, at home to Rutgers, away at Memphis, away at UCF, at home to Tulsa, away to Navy, away to Houston, at home to Cincinnati, and at home to East Carolina. So, I mentioned that was a really rough schedule last year. The stats, the total offense, they were 99th. They had 350 yards per game. The total defense was 77th. 391 yards per game they gave up. The scoring offense was 105th. It was just 22 points per game. And the scoring defense was 95th. They gave up 29 points per game. The rushing offense was really bad. It was 129th. Just 82 yards per game, 11 touchdowns, 3.1 yards per carry, which for a running backs coach, you would expect that'll change significantly in year 2. The rushing defense was 112th. They gave up 192 yards per game, 21 touchdowns, 4.5 yards per carry. The passing offense, however, a big surprise for them, it was 30th. Just shy of 270 yards per game and 18 touchdowns. And the passing defense was 24th. It was less than 200 yards per game and 21 touchdowns. But again, emphasis on teams ran the ball on them. They didn't throw as much. However, in sacks, they were 9th in the nation with 38. In tackles for loss, they were 10th with 88. They had a nasty-ass D-line last year. And the offensive line, they only allowed 10 sacks. They were 6th in the nation. They only allowed 60 tackles for loss, which was 45th. So the trenches, actually pretty good. Turnover margin, however, was 125th. They gained 12. They lost 23. You've got to cut that one out. But, I mean, overall, the units were both top 100, which is not indicative of a team that was in year 1 of a bad rebuild. You usually expect them to be lower, and they've got parts to build with this year. We're going to talk about him in a minute, but the passing offense especially, the trench warfare, they're building it right. They're building the trenches. They've got the quarterback. Now you've just got to build out into your skill areas, and then you can potentially take a really big leap, Ryan.
Yep, they've got structure. They've got foundations built on. They've got a strong offensive line in pass pro. They've got a defense that can pass the rusher and finish. That already gives you a chance to win a game. Just those two things there. The things they need to clean up are the easiest things to fix. Turnovers. In one season, let's say you can go from -11 to +5 in the blink of an eye. So, yeah, like I said, whether it's interceptions or if it's fumbles, they'll know what it is to work on. And they'll spend all of their off-season program making sure that they don't repeat that. So, they've already got lots of promise from last year.
Yeah, and there was a reason they had a lot of turnovers last year. It's to do with experience, and we're going to talk about it. So 2023, the quarterback, E.J. Warner. And you're thinking, quarterback, Warner, where have I heard that name before? Well, you will be right in thinking so. He is the son of legendary NFL quarterback Kurt Warner. So E.J. was a true freshman last season, but that didn't stop him from getting the job straight out the gate and keeping it. He was not on our radar to get this job last year. He had his struggles, as all true freshmen do. So he threw 12 picks and he had 8 fumbles while having -4 rushing yards all season. He's like his dad. He doesn't rush much, but this is a true freshman starting in his first year. You get turnovers. It's all part of the growth process. But what he does, he slings the ball like a pro out of the pocket. Also, just like Dad did, he really started showing out towards the end of the year. He threw 10 touchdowns in his last 4 games. He torched Houston and East Carolina for 1,000 yards in that span. In 2 games, he put up over 1,000 passing yards. But overall, get this for his first year as a true freshman, 3,025 passing yards, 18 touchdowns, 12 picks. He was throwing at a very respectable 60% completion, which for a true freshman is really high. He threw the most yards of any freshman quarterback in the nation. He was AAC Rookie of the Year, and he was just the second quarterback in Temple history to throw for more than 3,000 yards. And he already has the record for most passing completions in a season in team history with 268. If he builds on last year and starts cutting down the turnovers, which he should do, this, Ryan, could be a very special season for the young Warner.
Yep, if he puts all his effort into protecting the ball more, instead of trying to force it into windows, cutting down on yards, but improving on turnovers will lead to wins. And he could be one of the best sophomore quarterbacks in the country, maybe. Like I say, he only has to fix a few minor tweaks of what he did last year, and Temple will be dangerous. Like I say, their offense will be at least anyway. They could score quite heavily this year. So, yeah, they're in one of the best positions quarterback-wise in the whole of the AAC. Probably. They've probably gotten to the sound. And, yeah, he's got, 4-5 years potentially. Like I say, the future might be bright. And if he all goes to plan, he's probably going to be looking at bigger, better, brighter things than the Owls. If he has a good year this year, I don't think he'll be at Temple in 2024. I think he could make a big jump and get a big-time program switch if he has another good year this year. So the future is very bright for Warner Jr.
Absolutely. I'd say turnovers happen in freshmen's careers. The game's quick, they've got to slow it down, they make boneheaded decisions. It's all part of the process of being a true freshman. But passing for over 3,000 yards in your first year is impressive, and he's got good pedigree there. So overall,
it's an interesting year. Like I say, we've got Frank Gore's son, we've got Kurt Warner's son, we've got Shadur Sack, we've got
Coach Prime's
Jackson.
son.
Yeah, like I said, we have got I've never seen a year littered with so many future Hall of Famers children playing. It's going to be a crazy season for that.
Yeah, the year of the bloodline, as they say. There's more in there as well. I think there might be more in the American, if I remember rightly. But yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, EJ Warner, the name to watch out for. But the season preview in general. So the waters are still murky for Temple. There is massive work to be done on both sides of the ball in the run game, which may continue to hinder them in year two. But if you can show enough improvement, the quarterback and the defense might just push them over to the edge in bowl position, and that's the position Trayton has them in after just 1 year. But whatever happens, like we've said, Temple are going in the right direction right now. So EJ Warner will lead the offense, and he will be protected by 4 of the 5 offensive line who kept him upright all season. So that's vital, keeping those guys. The only change comes at left tackle, so the long-term starter, Isaac Moore, departs. He ran out of eligibility, he didn't leave, but in his place they've brought in massive 6'6" JUCO transfer Diego Barrias. He's going to fill that spot there, so just one change in and out. He's highly experienced at JUCO and will fit right in there. Everyone else is the same, with the exception of a few new freshmen, so the continuity is going to be huge. Now the line does have to improve dramatically against the run, but as we always say, the continuity of starting together will hopefully, reap rewards in that regard. The more you play together, the better you get. The running back room, that has to step up as well. Lead rusher Edward Sadie is back. He had 640 yards and 6 touchdowns last season. He had 900 total scrimmage yards. And they've also brought in Florida international transfer E.J. Wilson. He had 300 yards, 2 touchdowns in the Panthers rotation last season. And they also returned Darvin Hubbard. He had 200 yards and a pair of touchdowns. So they got a lead back, a couple of good backup guys there. It's enough to start with if this line can block for them. In terms of receivers, top target Jose Barbon and his 900 yards are gone. He's with the Dallas Cowboys. They've brought in Dante Wright. He was an uber productive receiver at Colorado State. He was injured in 2022, but he's fully healthy. He's going to be a top target for Warner. It's a good get for them, really. All the depth receivers are back. 2 of them had over 400 yards last year. They've got a really deep tight end room as well. So David Martin Robinson and Jordan Smith combined for 700 yards and 6 touchdowns last year. They've also brought in Landon Morris from Utah to add further competition. We know Utah make good tight ends. We saw one just go in the draft gone by, but they are one of the schools that do really well in that position. Defense also needs to kick it up against the run big time. There's a new defensive coordinator in town this year, Everett Withers. He is massively experienced, both as a head coach and a positional coach. DBs are his thing, but there's a lot of existing talent staying. They were always going to lose to the portal with such a potent pass rush. The standout edge Darren Varner has left for Wisconsin, where he will flourish there. and starting linebacker Kobe Lewis went to SMU. But outside of that, they were actually unharmed. So on the line itself, Jaquavian Mahone, he led the interior, 6 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks last year. Demeric Morris plays the interior as well as the edge as well. He just needs to up his production a bit. They've gone to the portal for help against the run. They've brought in Alan Hay. He's a 300-pounder coming from the Miami Hurricanes. He's been part of the D-line rotation there. They've brought in KJ Miles from Georgia Tech, who also has Power 5 experience, and he is looking to start. They've got promise in the edge room, even without Varner. So Lancin Toure, he's an emerging edge. He had 2.5 sacks, 3.5 tackles for loss last year. They've brought in Davian Hood from East Tennessee State, that's FCS. He had a very productive year as a starter, and more importantly, his run defense makes up the best part of his game, and they need guys who can seal up the edge against the run. The linebacker room is loaded. It may be the best unit in the AAC, full stop. So you've got the hybrid Leighton Jordan, 18.5 tackles for loss, 9 sacks, 2 interceptions. He returned both for pick sixes and 3 forced fumbles in 2022. He plays all 3 levels. He is a true monster in this defense. Then you've got Jordan McGee. He led the team in tackles, 9 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks, 3 pass breakups, forced fumble thrown in for good measure. Then you've got Vandy Rigby, second in the team on tackles, 5.5 for a loss, 2 sacks, 3 pass breakups. These guys all really good in coverage. And for added measure, they've brought in D1 Black from Florida for depth in the room. He was once the number 1 JUCO prospect in the country in 2021. It's not quite worked with him with the Gators, but if the Owls unlock him, that linebacker group is truly going to be insane this year. Secondary needs to pitch in more this year. Only 6 picks last year. 2 of them were from a linebacker, and that was with all the pressure the D-line was getting, but they've made some nice additions to the established few this year. So Jalen McMurray is their standout corner. He had 7 pass breakups, 2 forced fumbles in 2022. He had an 80-plus PFF grade overall. Dominic Hill had 5 pass breakups. He's lining up opposite him. Depth pieces are all still on the team, so hopefully they as a unit grow together. Safety room has its starters. Alex Odom, very aggressive, strong safety, loves to come up and blitz as well as do his duties in the secondary. You've got Elijah Deraville at free safety. He showed glimpses. And you've got a lot of portal help as well. So you've got Tywin Francis coming from Colorado State, Kamal Wilcoxon from Florida, and Ben Osueki from Blaine College in JUCO. They'll give the rooms much needed competition. They've got the parts to be successful, right? It's just all about whether they can bring it together enough or not.
Yeah, and also they've gone less portal heavy than the other 2 teams. There's more people already in the building. There's more people already established from last year, and that usually works better than going out and bringing in every Tom, Dick and Harry. How much evidence where they've got that come in and wants to try find a new home, a new place. If you can just splice it with a little bit of talent, a little bit of portal help, just to add some competition or get a couple of quality starters. But yeah, you've got the best sophomore quarterback in the conference. You've got one of the best offensive lines. You've got a defensive line that lost some, but still pretty sturdy. And then, yeah, you've got a secondary that's got starters already there, so they're not replacing it. Like I say, this team is kind of built to win. It's in a win now mode. I think actually right now, if things go their way, like they are the darkest of dark horses, I suppose you could say. Like it's certainly got a lot to potentially be excited about. It's not a team you would look forward to playing if you needed a win or something's on the line.
That's funny because that's like the comment I had about them on here, the darkest of dark horses. This is your true outsider, potentially for the conference if EJ really balls out this year. The schedule, how does it look? So the out-of-conference schedule, they got 3 home games. They play at home to Akron, away at Rutgers, at home to Norfolk State, and at home to Miami. When it comes to the conference schedule, you're away at Tulsa, at home to UTSA, away at North Texas, at home to SMU. Then you get a bye, then you're at home to Navy, away to South Florida, away to UAB, and at home to Memphis. So you've got a sort of stretch at home to UTSA, SMU, and away at North Texas just before the bye. You're away at Tulsa to start with. If you get through that with a few wins, then Navy, South Florida, UAB, Memphis, you can eat in to, you know, the wins you need for a bowl game there.
Yeah, I think I'd be disappointed if they don't get to a bowl game. Maybe they don't have to win it, but I expect them to be hovering around over under 5.5, 6 wins this year. I think they also should expect to not just, like say, match last season or improve on it, but they should try to be considerably better than last year. So yeah, and the schedule, it's not that hard. There's a lot of teams right now that are in a lot worse positions. So some low-hanging fruit to prey on. I think they should genuinely go out and prey on some of the teams around them.
Yeah, no, I think the opportunity is there. Like you're saying, I would like to see them around bowl games, but you want to see that progression, and then they can really kick on next year, especially if they can keep Warner for a third year. Finishing this off, the player to watch, the outside linebacker Leighton Jordan. Mentioned him already. He's 6'2", 220 pounds. Who doesn't love a linebacker that can play all three levels of defense when called upon? I certainly do. It was his first year as a starter. Last year, after 3 years at Temple, he went ballistic on the stat sheet, as I mentioned. He led the team in tackles, 18.5 tackles for loss, 9 sacks, 2 interceptions, which were both pick sixes, 3 forced fumbles, registered an 80-plus grade in coverage as well. To put it in potential, the defensive coordinator from here last year has been hired to be the Philadelphia Eagles linebacker coach, and you know how brutally high the standards are for Philly Eagles linebackers, so his coaching has been elite. He's going to star again this season, and when he does, there will be a lot of buzz about him in draft circles. It's just his missed tackle rate he needs to bring down. It's 30%, but when you're playing all three levels, you've got to tackle in a lot of different ways. You've got a lot of different assignments to do. Sometimes it is a little higher, but you bring that down, there's no obvious deficiencies to this guy's game at all. So Leighton Jordan is the guy to watch at Temple. Right, we're moving on. We're about halfway now. So last year's champions, the Tulane Green Wave, and what a story they were. Established 1893. They play at the Ullman Stadium. The 2021 record, they were 2-10 and they went 1-7 in the AAC. In 2022, they flipped it entirely. They went 12-2, they went 7-1 in the AAC, and they won the whole damn thing. They are the champions of the conference. The rivalries with LSU, the battle for the rag. It is a satin trophy flag that they have. It's known as the Tiger Rag by LSU, and the victory flag at Tulane. They've got rivalries against Southern Miss, Auburn, and Old Miss as well. The coach, Willie Fritz. We like a bit of Willie Fritz. He's 63. He's in his 8th season. A well-tenured head coach who has been a head coach since 1997. Spent 13 seasons at Central Missouri in the FCS. Finished 97-47 there. With one bowl win in 2 attempts, he won 1 conference title as well. He was 72-44 in conference. Moved to Sam Houston State for 4 seasons, went 40-15, won 2 consecutive conference titles, but he did lose an FCS championship game both seasons. He then moved to Georgia Southern for 2 years. He went 17-7, won another conference title before coming to Tulane. Now, it didn't start very fast for him here, and there's a lot of people who've been wondering why the success has been slow to come. In 7 seasons, he has just 3 winning seasons. He won a share of the AAC West in 2018, but then nothing else until last season when he won the whole lot. He's won 3 bowl games as well. He's mostly struggled in the division. The record's 23-33, and he had 3 losing seasons in a row in conference before last year's quite astounding run. I mean, we noted in 2021 Fritz had hit the hard reset. He was building a young team, hence why they were quite bad last year, but it paid dividends quicker than most expected. They brought a lot of players back last season. They had a settled team, maybe like Temple will be this year. And not only did they take the American, but then they took down USC in the Cure Bowl as well. Tulane have been very patient with Willie Fritz Ryan. It's paid off, and now all his major rivals are gone. Maybe that patience they've had is going to now translate into a period of dominance for this team in the American.
Yeah, very much a slow burner, but they understood it was going to take time. We've seen a lot of head coaches fired after 2-3 bad years when they were hired by a program that was struggling and they weren't given the time to operate. Here's looking at you, New Mexico, things like that, like getting rid of guys like too soon. And then last year, historic. The top dog. They've come off probably one of their best programs in history. And now they've got a big old target on their back. And the only thing harder than winning everything is defending everything. And yeah, to beat USC in a bowl game, that was wild. And it was a great game. How on earth they live up to last season, I will never know. And it's going to be some effort to come even close. But yeah, if the team is settled, they're bringing guys back, all the major rivals have gone. They'll want to be a dynasty. They'll want to win 3 or 4 of the next 5. Stretch out, look towards the long term. Yeah, this has got to be the start of something. It can't have just been a flash in the pan. Yeah. But we're going to find out very quickly if that was the case or not.
Yeah, exactly. This was a misnomer so far in terms of how things have gone, but still wonderful, and it's great to see it pay off because he is a really good head coach. He did it the right way, he realised it wasn't working, he jettisoned everything, started again, and he's got his rewards. Brent says, I'm surprised Fritz didn't bolt. Maybe I'm not, because that team has shown a lot of faith with him, and it would kind of look really bad if he just bolted after one good year. I think he's repaying the faith the team have given him there, and if he can win a couple more, I think I read somewhere he wants to retire there. I think they're working on a contract extension for him through till about 2030. I mean, he's 63 now. He'll probably retire after that. So this might be his last ever stop, and I think he'd be happy with that. So the 2022 record, the wins at home to UMass, at home to Alcorn State, away at Kansas State. That was a Power 5 scalp on the road against Kansas State, who were big in the Big 12 last year. That is no mean feat. Away at Houston, at home to East Carolina, away at USF, at home to Memphis, away at Tulsa, at home to SMU, away at Cincinnati, at home to UCF in the championship game, and then at home to USC in the bowl game. The only losses were at home to Southern Miss, which weirdly came after the week they beat Kansas State. I think they had a hangover there. And they lost to UCF in the regular season, so it was a hard schedule. They beat most of the good teams in the conference there. A few of them on the road as well. The team itself, the offense, total offense, 31st, 441 yards per game. Total defense, 47th, 360 yards per game. 2 top 50 units, that's what you need to win championships, unless you're Troy, apparently. Scoring offense, 19th, 36 points per game. Scoring defense, 33rd. Just 22 points per game given up, so a lot better than the total was for the scoring. The rushing offense was 20th, 205 yards per game, 34 touchdowns, 5.1 yards per carry. Rushing defense was 69th, way 152.3 yards per game. Just 15 touchdowns given up on the ground all season and less than 4 yards per carry given up. Passing offense was 61st, passing defense was 37th. They were 101st in sacks and 104th in tackles for loss, so D-line needs to be a bit better. Sacks allowed, they were 64th with 29. Tackles for loss allowed, they were 32nd, just with 65. And the turnover margin, they were 37th. Gained the ball 21 times, lost the ball 16 times. I mean, really solid numbers across the board there. There's no obvious imbalance in the offense or the defense. They're both just really good units without being elite, and they've sort of come together as one, and that is how you win championships, by having as much balance as possible.
Yeah, just by far the most well-rounded team, and just the best coached as well. Like I say, on the field, some of their part play and some of their positions, they were really average, but when it mattered, they were clutch. When it came into fourth quarters, when it came into situational football, they were far superior than anyone else they came up against majority of the time. when it really mattered, at the end of halves, at the end of the game, they really did their damage. And yeah, Willie Fritz and his offensive and defensive coordinators, coaching literally helped them to lots of wins because, yeah, they didn't really stand out in many factors other than rushing the ball. They were really good, and they were really good in the defensive red zone and getting stops, especially on the ground. So, yeah, they were just the best all-round team in the entire conference.
Yeah, absolutely. And Brent, I didn't miss your question about EJ Warner. I will answer it at the end. I will come back to that one there. So yeah, what does 2023 hold for them? They've had the best year in team history in some time. What comes next? The quarterback. One of the things that remains the same, Michael Pratt. He's 6'3", 220 pounds, highly experienced quarterback who is going into his 4th year with the Green Wave. He's held the starting job his entire career, all the way back to true freshman, and he's improved every single year. He had exactly 3,000 yards on 63% completion in 2022, 27 touchdowns, just 5 interceptions. He had 600 yards and 10 scores on the ground with just 6 fumbles. Overall, he's got 7,000 passing yards, 68 touchdowns, just 21 picks. He's got 1,353 yards and 23 scores on the ground as well. The deep ball got much better last year, and his overall accuracy improved by over 6%. So he may be one of the most well-rounded dual threats in the American, and he's seemingly only going to keep getting better. His ceiling could be real high. You know what I've discovered about this conference, right? There are some really good quarterbacks in this conference. I mean, a lot of good. Some teams have nothing. But you look at some of the guys we've seen so far, and Michael Pratt is up there as another bona fide dual threat back. And what he's done for the Green Wave since been a true freshman, really good.
He was one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the entire nation last year. Like I say, really healthy touchdown numbers, good passing yards. Ball security is what stands out the most. For a guy that does pass the ball deep quite often, a lot, very rarely any misplaced passes. Interceptions more often than not were better defensive plays and outstanding efforts than they were poorly placed balls. So, yeah, accuracy and his ability to protect the ball went a long way to them winning a title. And yeah, he's now, like I say, he's had multiple good years under the belt. He's got better every year. He's one of the most experienced quarterbacks in the nation. Like I say, you couldn't ask for much more. And this is the kind of year he's going to put it all together. He wants to go pro. Like I say, he's thinking about, am I going to be undrafted? Or am I going to be a day 3? Or am I going to go start in the XFL, which his game would be perfect. I can see him starting in the USFL or the XFL next year. I can see that'll be how he gets his path to the NFL. But he's now going to have lofty aspirations about thinking about going pro. So this year, I don't see regression. If he can improve on them, that will be difficult because he's been so good. But yeah, you know what you're getting with him, and most teams in the conference would kill to have Pratt as their QB.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to go out there and say now, of all the G5 conferences, if you want to see quarterback play next year, watch the American. It is by far the deepest room of good quarterbacks in the G5, and I have no problem in saying that. Brent goes, followed Tulane from the game I watched live. The third string quarterback had a heck of a game. They became one of my favourite teams to watch last year. Great year. Wasn't shocked when they won the bowl game. You know what? I think I remember we both had them to upset USC in the bowl pick watch. I think we didn't find it surprising either. They just had a great year and everyone played in it. And they did really well, so agree with you there, Brent. So the season preview for them in general, so it's taken a long time for Tulane to get to the top. Now they've got a whole host of wannabes gunning for their spot. Can they maintain the hold on the conference, or will a large amount of turnover catch up with them? So the offense is in the better spot turnover-wise. They bring back nearly 70% of last year's production, but what they have lost is pretty big. So Pratt's the cornerstone of the team at quarterback. He is going to be protected by a formidable offensive line again with 4 returning starters. So you've got an all-star center in Sincere Hainsworth. He was our player to watch on this team last year. like I say, he's the anchor. He is a 4-year starter. He's consistently played at a very high level. Didn't cough up a single sack last season. He's going to draw interest in the draft, I feel. The left guard, Prince Pines, is also an all-star. Josh Remich is back at right guard. Rashad Green at right tackle. The only guy gone is the left tackle, Joey Claybook. He ran out of eligibility, but they got a really good get in the portal here. They got Cameron Wire out of the transfer portal. Now, he has over 1,000 snaps for the LSU Tigers. He will be the new left tackle, and he might instantly become one of the top players on this offensive line, which is crazy given they've already got 2 all-stars. This line is in a real healthy spot. Now, the biggest loss, as we all know, comes at running back. Star running back Tyjae Spears got drafted in round 3 by the Titans. He had 1,837 all-purpose yards and 21 touchdowns. Replacing him is the big key this season. Now, Tulane realised this. They went to the portal and they went and got Shedro Louis in the portal from Liberty. Now, he had 530 yards and 8 touchdowns for the Flames last year. He's only 5'8", but this guy possesses sub 4.4 speed. If the line can carve space for him, he will eat for days. They've got Shardy Clayton. He was running at over 6 yards per carry behind Tyjae Spears last year. They got Everson Celestine. He had over 300 yards for the team last season. So as a trio, they should form a good overall running back room, although they'll not have the bona fide star right away like Spears. But Shedro Louis can eat here and can be very good. The receiver room lost its 2 top targets who had over 600 yards apiece. But they do keep Shaquan Jackson. He had over 500 yards. He is back. They've got a speed deep threat in Lawrence Keys. He'll look to get in the action some more. They've got a good tight end in Alex Bowman as well. They are joined out the portal by Dante Fleming from Louisville. He had 3 touchdowns for them last year in the Power 5. And they got Yul Keith Brown. He broke into the rotation at Texas A&M last year, so more Power 5 experience. But they do need targets to emerge this year. So running backs and wide receivers they are refreshing with. The defense, on the other hand, going through a big transition. It's 110th in returning production, only 48% coming back, and they've only gone after secondary in the portal, so they must be quite confident in the depth guys at the first 2 levels. They've got a new defensive coordinator, Sheil Wood. You'll know his name. He was co-DC at Army, helped create a top 20 defense, and then last year he was defensive coordinator at none other than Troy. He created a top 20 unit there, and that defense helped Troy win the Sun Belt. No ifs, ands, or buts. This is a really good hire for them on the defense. The tackle situation, very healthy for them here. Patrick Jenkins had 9 tackles for loss and 3 sacks. Cameron Hamilton started to show out at the nose tackle position, but the guys behind them are redshirts. So, again, they're trusting the guys who are already in the system. Darius Hodges is the lead guy off the edge. He joint led the team in sacks last season, but he only had 5. So they need a lot more production off the edge room this year. And again, they're relying on guys already in the program. Obviously, linebacker Dorian Williams, he was the huge loss, the diminutive linebacker last season. He got drafted. He had 5 sacks. He's been their most consistent tackler for years, so he'll take some replacing, but they've got a good replacement in Nick Williams. He had over 250... Oh, sorry. The other starting linebacker, Nick Williams, has gone as well. That's 250 tackles taken out of the team, and the next 3 top tacklers were done as well. So a lot to be replaced in the middle of the defense. Tyler Grubbs comes out the portal from Louisiana Tech. He's had over 1,500 snaps there. He'll fill one of those starting holes. They've got Jesus Mercado and Corey Platt, who are the rotational guys. They've been working their way up to starter status. So again, hoping the young guys come through and do it. There is enough experience to make up a good unit there. The secondary, though, could actually be really good. So in the safety room, you've got AJ Hampton, who arrives from Northwestern. He's played 1,700 snaps in the Big Ten for Northwestern, so a lot of Power 5 experience coming in the room there. They got Cam Pedescler. He's been a 4-year starter at Louisiana. and you've got Darius Swanson, who comes from Nebraska Kearney in year 2, also been a starter there for multiple years. So that safety room has a lot of talent in there. They've got good depth and good young guys. So the safety room's in a good place. They've got a star cornerback in Jarius Monroe. He was a 3-year starter at Nicholls State, had his first season last year with the team, and he took like a duck to water to the American. He's already one of the conference's best corners. They've got a veteran on the other side in Lance Robinson, so they form a very highly experienced duo there. They just need to sort out the depth behind them. They brought in an FCS transfer, Tahir Anor from Wofford. He is a very promising corner talent. He's making the leap up. He's been a starter there for a couple of years. I mean, the team is sort of primed for another go-around. They need to find more pass rush. They need to replace Spears' production, and they do need to replace that linebacker room a bit. But overall, right, they've got the pieces there in a conference that's, in flux. They can do it again. With that offense, though, it'll probably be this year.
Yeah, they've got just enough to say that on paper they're clear favourites, probably. Like I say, they'll go running back by committee instead of just having Spears get all the workload. And then linebacker room, yeah, they've been good. Like I say, all their reliable tacklers are gone. They will need guys to step in instantly and prove that they're able to hold up against the run game, have that defensive line. So 2 positions there where they're going to have a bit of probably growing pains, I reckon, especially at the linebacker room. It's never easy. But the rest of the team can hold it together while they work those things out. So it shouldn't dramatically change anything. But yeah, like I said, a lot of the foundation is still there. And then the secondary, yeah, they've brought in a lot of talent. Like I say, they've scooped up some good guys that are not only coming from big schools, but have also had a lot of snaps. Like I said, they've played a lot of downs, so they're bringing in a wealth of experience.
Yeah, there's enough there for them to do it again if they just get the little bits right. And the schedule, it's not too bad. So they don't play week 0. The non-con, they play South Alabama and Ole Miss at home. They're away at Southern Miss, then they're at home to Nicholls. So you can win 2 of those, maybe 3 of those quite easy. The conference schedule, you start at home to UAB, then you have a bye. You're away at Memphis, at home to North Texas, away at Rice, away at East Carolina, at home to Tulsa, away to Florida Atlantic, at home to UTSA. So you've got a lot of the former C-USA teams on the road. East Carolina rebuilding. You've got Tulsa, North Texas, Birmingham at home. Again, it's a more favourable schedule for this team. You avoid teams like SMU altogether. It could be there for them. Get another 7-8 wins and win the conference.
Yeah, it's compared to last year, that looks like a cakewalk. Like I say, last year was a gauntlet. This year, but will be interesting to see. They can't afford to take it lightly, though. Like I said, there are some banana skins there to slip up on if they don't start slowly or they do have a hangover from last year. They can't afford to take some teams there too lightly, but if they play as well as they did last year, they should roll over a lot of those. There's not a lot to stand in their way between back-to-back repeat. Only themselves, really.
Yeah, 100%. The opportunity is there to be had. And to finish them off, the player to watch, the centre, Sincere Hainsworth, mentioned him, 6'1", 310 pounds. So last year we did all the G5, highlighted a player. This year, highlighted a player. I think he's only the second player to get back-to-back shout-outs from me here. So we highlighted Hainsworth last year. He went on to have an all-star campaign, leading the line for a championship winner. He's a team captain. He's loyal to the soil. Went back for 1 more year to finish his Masters, further round out his game before going to the draft. Quick and powerful safety at the point of attack. Sneakily athletic. He's a guy who can get out to the second level, hit guys on the move, organises the offensive line really well, makes very few mistakes. You see him directing combo blocks, selling trap moves, sealing off D-line there. And most importantly, he's tough as nails, and he lets his opponents feel it. He's one of those, when he finishes a move, he finishes it very aggressively. He lets his opponent know he's down. And if you're looking for interior guys in the draft next year, Sincere Hainsworth is your man, the centre, there for where am I? Tulane. Right, we've got 3 teams left. We're going to start off the Tulsa Golden Hurricanes. Love the name. Established 1995. They play at Skelly Field. In 2021, they were 7-6. They went 5-3 in the AAC. 2022, they regressed. They were 5-7. They went 3-5 in the AAC. So basically, flipped the numbers round, and that got Montgomery fired from there. The rivalries are with Houston and Oklahoma State. Another team with a first-time head coach, and interesting appointment here, Kevin Wilson. His first season, he is 61 years old. Another offensively minded coach. He's been coaching since 1984, so 5 years before I was born. Some of his bigger stints came at Miami, Ohio for 8 years in the 90s as OL coach, then an OC. Had 8 years at Oklahoma in the noughties as a co-OC, then full OC. Did offensive line and tight ends as well. He then got his break into head coaching with Indiana in the Big Ten. He would end up there for 6 seasons. He never had a winning season. It took 5 years to get to 6 wins, but he managed it in his last 2 years. Ended up resigning amidst investigations into mistreatment of players not long after he'd signed an extension through to 2021. So he ended with a record of 26-47, and he was 12-37 in the Big Ten, which is not good. He has since spent 5 years as co-offensive coordinator and tight ends coach at Ohio State. No need to tell you how their offense has been doing in recent years. It's been really good, apart from when it plays Michigan. Tulsa is his first head coach job in 7 years. As I say, Philip Montgomery, he had this team bowling 2 of the last 3 years, but they never won more than 7 games, and after 8 years, that's kind of not good enough, and they fired him. Tulsa want more than peripheral bowl appearances, but Wilson inherits a team. It's number 126 in the nation in return in production. It's lost a lot of weapons. This may be a tough assignment to start with initially, Ryan. Interesting appointment from Tulsa here, Kevin Wilson.
Yeah, I kind of feel for him. Like, say, a team that, like, remember when the Lions fired a coach because they weren't happy at 9 wins, and then things like fell off a cliff. And then you say you fire a head coach that's gone bowl games 2 and 3 seasons, all the talent leaves, and then you bring in a guy that's not coached a team like 7 years as a head coach. Like, it kind of feels like he could be thrown under the bus a little bit. Like, the first year could go really badly and reflect quite poorly on him, but he's really just about to hit a team that's kind of just slowly unravelled, and now he's the one that's got to try and wind it back up again. So this could be quite difficult job. Like I said, instantly, like, the car, whatever happens is probably not going to be good enough, but how long are they really going to have to give him patience? Like, first time I'd say, he's also in his 60s as well. You'd have thought that they'd gone with someone that might have a little bit more time on their hands, or is a bit fresher. So this feels like a funny one. A team that has been consistently average, one less than average year, and suddenly they axe him. So you kind of got to hit the ground running. You're kind of already in a warm seat.
Yeah, it might be an interesting sort of comparison with when, so Golish is at South Florida, young, on the way up, offensive coordinator. Tulsa here, gone a little bit older. Going to be interesting to see which of the two methods works a little bit more. So the 2022 records, the team is inheriting. They won at home to Northern Illinois and Jacksonville State, away at Temple, versus USF, not UCF, and away at Houston. So only really one big win in there. The losses, away at Wyoming, away at Ole Miss, versus Cincinnati, away at Navy, versus SMU, versus Tulane, away at Memphis. The records wasn't the worst team in the world. The total offense, they were 46th, 412 yards per game. Total defense, though, they were 99th, 414 yards per game given up. Scoring offense was 50th, about 30.5 points per game. The scoring defense was 117th. They gave up 33 points per game there. The rushing offense was 85th. The rushing defense was 122nd. They gave up 208 yards per game and nearly 5 yards per carry. Passing offense, 24th. A lot better than the rushing. They were 273 yards per game, 27 touchdowns. Passing defense, they were 33rd, just 206 yards per game, but again got smacked in the run game, so not passed on as much. Team sacks, they were 124th. They only had 16 sacks all season. They were 95th in tackles for loss with just 61. And then on the flip side of the ball, sacks allowed, 128th. That was 45 sacks they gave up, and they were 99th in tackles for loss allowed with 79. The turnover margin was 84th. They were 16 gained, 18 lost. Now, you kind of see the story there, right? You know, top 100 units, both sides of the ball, top 50 offense, you're thinking, maybe they should have done better, but then both sides of the trenches dominated. This is like the exact opposite of Temple. Temple didn't do as well, but their trenches are there. Tulsa's got annihilated last year, and that's why Philip Montgomery lost his job, because you lose the trenches, you ain't going to win many games, you ain't going to win a title.
No, that offensive line got dominated. QB got battered. Running backs and wide receivers were getting caught behind the line constantly. So, yeah, they were not good foundations to build upon. It's just impossible to win. Like I said, you can't get to the quarterback and you simply can't keep your quarterback upright and protect him. You will never win games. It's just not a recipe that's physically possible to get results. And it can be one of the hardest things to fix. Like I say, if you're bringing back most of the guys, how do you get them to perform better or get rid of their bad habits? So it's not good, and it can take a while for to bear the fruits of better protection and better pass rush.
Yep, indeed. So what kind of team does he take over this year? Well, it's one with a new quarterback. We talked about Davis Brin, their former starter, a few weeks back. He's gone to Georgia Southern. He got injured last year. I think he was fed up of getting hit, and he's transferred out to that program. So Braylon Braxton is the next guy up, 6'3", 222 pounds. He was Brin's understudy. He was able to find some starts last year and performed well. He had 1,133 passing yards, 10 touchdowns, just 2 picks. He had 233 yards, 5 touchdowns on the ground, as well as just 3 fumbles. So looked after the ball incredibly well. He did initially enter the portal after Montgomery's firing, but they convinced him to come back. He's a pocket guy, he's got a live arm, and he can be an effective runner as well. But this is going to be his first year as a starter. We're going to see just what he's capable of. It's not what you want when you're coming into a new program, brand new guy in there. But, I mean, in relief of Davis Brin last year, those are very serviceable numbers for a guy who's just starting for the first time. If you can carry that on, they might have something to work with there.
Oh, yeah. Like, he's got all the traits to be a very steady, positive passer. But the only thing he lacked was a pocket. Like I say, this is the kind of quarterback that can be really, really good, but relies heavily on having time to throw the ball, and maybe holds onto the ball a bit too long. So he needs a protection to hold up extra well. So they've got a potential guy at quarterback, but he can't do it alone. Being, like you say, a solid guy that wants to sit in and step up into the pocket and then take strikes downfield. So things have to go right for this QB to succeed this year. But there's worse scenarios you could be in. At least he's decided to actually stick around. He could have just jumped ship, which shows somewhat, there's a bit of loyalty there. He took his name out and said, we'll give it a go for a year under the new guy.
Yeah, I read something about it. He said, look, I'd had a good year. People were calling me, so I went in to see what the jig was going to be, but they talked to me and I came back. So you can respect that there. So the preview in general for this team, I mean, Wilson, he's going to want to put the fallout from his Indiana days behind him, but he's inherited a team that's stuck in mid-table mediocrity in the AAC. Montgomery's always had him sort of towards the lower middle, and the expectations are high here. It's not enough anymore to just be mid-table. So maybe not in year one, but he needs to get his scheme in place quick to keep pace with all these ascending teams in the conference, because there's a lot of newbies who want a piece of the action at the top. Offense is going to look a lot different. So you've got a new offensive coordinator and just 37% of last year's production returning. Steve Spurrier is the new OC. He spent the last few years coaching wide receivers in Mike Leach's School of Air Raid at Miss State, rest in peace to him, and he is highly experienced working with quarterbacks as well. He's part of the reason that Braxton came back to lead this team, but he's got to do it without last year's starting tackles on the offensive line. Both Dylan Wade and Jaden Muskrat went to Auburn. They were both snapped up by Hugh Freeze. The centre, Will Farniak, he gave up 5 sacks and 6 quarterback hits last year. The left guard, Chester Barr, gave up 5 sacks and 8 quarterback hits. The right guard, Tautai Leo Marks, he gave up just 2 sacks but 24 pressures overall. Bryce Bray will be the right tackle, but he missed all of 2022 with an injury. And the left tackle, Herbert K. Leon, is in year 5. But he's never been a starter before, so this entire line's going to have to play a lot better to give Braxton a chance. If he's sacked near 50 times, he'll end up like Davis Brin, suffering injuries, having a stop-start career. They do not want that. The top 2 rushers are done, including Deneric Prince. Jordan Ford and Bill Jackson had a few hundred each. They get Anthony Watkins back. He missed all of 2022, but he had 600 yards at over 7 yards per carry on this team in 2021. And they've got Braylon Presley in from Oklahoma State. He's a wide receiver turned running back. So there's talent, but not much real production in the last 12 months from any of them. So can they do something with that? The receiver room has been similarly depleted. They've lost Keelan Stokes and JC Santana combined. They went for 2,300 receiving yards and 15 touchdowns last year. Isaiah Epps, who was 4th on the team with 430 yards and 5 touchdowns, is also gone. So you're losing nearly 3,000 yards and 20 touchdowns there. Malachi Jones is the only guy with serious production left. He had 470 yards, 2 touchdowns last year. After that, you've got Nick Rempert and Marquise Shoulders who have any production at all, and it was not much. I think it was less than 50 yards each. And then you've got 6 freshmen arriving in the latest signing class. So the wide receiver room is young and barren of production. The tight end room had no one above 40 receiving yards last season either, and no transfers have come in, so they're relying on natural growth there. The defense hit just as hard. Only 45% production returning from last year. The defensive line, major improvement to go through. 16 sacks is nowhere good enough. They've got a couple of nose tackles in Everett Rogers and Jaden Simon, but they only had 1 tackle for loss between them last year. And they've got a buck up against the run as well. You've got Joseph Anderson. He was the lead in rusher, but he only had 3.5 sacks. They bought in Ben Kopensky from Oklahoma State, who had 4 sacks for them last year, so it's an upgrade. But both of them really need to show up and really up those numbers. They could do with someone getting into double figures there. And especially as there's little experienced help coming from the second level, all 3 starting linebackers are gone, including star player Justin Wright, who went to Oklahoma State. They got Julian Simon out of the portal from USC, which was good, but he's had precious few snaps for them. Mostly it's kind of current guys stepping up. So you got Dorian Hopkins and Culkin Mitchell, but they were very sparingly used last year. Secondary does get a lot of help, however. So you've got Kenderin Ray, he's the mainstay at safety. They've brought in Canyon Williams from Oklahoma State and Adrian Huey from Kentucky. And then in the corners, you've got Tyree Carlisle and Kenny Solomon. They're developing corners. And they've brought in DeMarco Jones from Oklahoma State, Kewan Parker from Arkansas to help shore things up. But, I mean, overall, this is a team, it's going very young. And it's very inexperienced amongst a few senior pieces. This feels like a rebuild, right? Your receiver room is mainly freshmen. I mean, a lot of your rooms are just mainly guys who've not seen that much there. It could be tough for them.
Oh, yeah. If they weren't happy with what they saw last year, then this could be a shock to the system this year. They may be very much lamenting parting ways with their head coach so soon. Like I said, a new head coach, like little to no offensive talent to work with. a QB that could potentially be talented, but an offensive line that so far was not able to keep their past quarterback healthy, and then a very young team. This team will either be really good or it could be really bad. And I mean bad, it could be not even average, it could be a disaster this year. So this squad, like, to keep like the Sharks at bay, he really needs his team to clump together, especially the young guys, and keep their heads above water in the first year.
Yeah.
Otherwise, second year, it could start next year in a really hot seat.
Yeah, and this schedule doesn't help them. So they don't play week 0. The non-con, they're at home to Arkansas Pine Bluff, but then they're away at Washington and at home to Oklahoma, and then they're away at Northern Illinois, which is not a give me. And then you get to the conference schedule. They start at home to Temple and away at Florida Atlantic, who are both emerging teams. You get a bye. You're at home to Rice, away to SMU, at home to Charlotte, away to Tulane, home to North Texas, away at East Carolina. I mean, away at Herman and Florida Atlantic, away at SMU, away at the conference champions Tulane, away at East Carolina, who are going to want to be up there. And then at home, you've got North Texas, who are coming in after a good year. You've got Temple, who are emerging. Rotten schedule. That's not easy at all, and you could soon find yourself in a mire losing games week in, week out.
Yeah, schedule's not kind for teams going to have to learn quickly on the fly. And as we spoke about there, a lot of teams that have got good defensive lines, they're going to be good at what this team is not good at, and that is pass protection and holding up and giving the quarterback time. Something tells me their quarterback is going to be running for his life at times this season, if he's not already been taken down. So, yeah, it could be a rough all year for the quarterback this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm finishing this one off. The player to watch, the safety Kendrin Ray, 6'3", 208 pounds, highly experienced safety. He's got nearly 2,000 snaps for this Tulsa team. He had a pick and 6 pass breakups last year, which in a defense that was mostly run on was quite a fair contribution. He's very good against the run, can come up to provide support, and he's just as good when it comes to his coverage. Doesn't pass rush so much, but he doesn't need to. He's very versatile back there. So Kendrin Ray, in a team that's got a lot of youth in it, he will stand out, I reckon, as one of the senior guys there. Right, we've got 2 teams to go, and this is the one I've been waiting to hear about here. UAB, the University of Alabama Birmingham Blazers. I keep wanting to call them the Stallions because of the USFL, and it's really confusing me. But yeah, the University of Alabama Birmingham Blazers, established 1991. They play at Protective Stadium. Obviously, coming from the C-USA, the 2021 record was 9-4. They were 6-2 in conference. Last year took a step back. But their coach retired like right before the season started, and when Brian Vincent came in, it was all that stuff. They went 7-6, and they were 4-4 in conference. The rivalries they have with Memphis, that is a reborn rivalry. Now they're in the same conference. It's called the Battle of the Bones. The winning team gets a 100-pound bronze statue of a rack of ribs. Pays homage to both cities' prominence in the scene of barbecue. They've also got rivalries with Troy and Southern Miss as well, but it's the coach we want to talk about here, isn't it, Ryan? Trent Dilfer, former NFL quarterback, first season, 51 years old. He threw for over 20,000 yards in the league, primarily for the Tampa Bay Bucks and the Seattle Seahawks. And this is the thing, he has never held a coaching job at the collegiate level. Instead, he's got a few years coaching at high school level with Lipscomb. He got in a bit of bother not so long ago after a TikTok showed him shoving a player who was the son of one of his former teammates. He's a guy, he's a character, let's just say that much. And he's got a very tough assignment here. So UAB, they've got a brand new stadium. They have not had a losing season since 2017, and they've worked very hard to try and break into their recruiting grounds around them, which are dominated by Alabama and Auburn. It's a hard place to recruit. They can't afford to slip into becoming a bottom of the American team, and expectations are going to be high for the brand new coach here, but it's going to be even harder. Wilson, we told you, had the team who had 126th in return in production next year. The Blazers are 128th. They're losing even more than what they had last season, so he's also coming somewhere. He's going to have to rebuild. And Brian Vincent had a good year. The players wanted him. The fans wanted him. The AD said, screw you all, I'm going to go and get Trent Dilfer. Ryan, what do you make the Dilfer Dilly is in college football?
It's a bit of a joke, isn't it? It's Ed Reed. And Trent Dilfer will be one and done. If that, I think this is a ridiculous hire. It's vanity, it's publicity, with no substance behind it. The players didn't want him. The fans didn't want him. He's got no real... He ain't got a CV. Like I say, he ain't got any coordinators bring with him. Like I say, he's got no real experience, like I say, other than, like I say, high school. The only thing he's got is he's Trent Dilfer. This will all end in tears. I have absolutely no doubt in it. I don't see any way this will end well. And if it does, I'll come on and I'll apologise to Trent Dilfer. I'll even tweet him and say I was wrong, but I'm very confident I won't be doing that. This won't end well.
It feels like a trend's been set with Deion Sanders, doesn't it? Bring in the big name from the NFL.
He was really good at Jackson State. At least he had credible football success. Trent Dilfer, literally, it's like saying, I was the general manager of McDonald's, so I'm now going to go be the CEO of Starbucks.
Yeah.
A branch like this. There's just no correlation, is there, really?
No. I think what you're hoping on is that his name provides star power which can recruit. You hope he can train quarterbacks well. I know it's not.
I don't think he is.
I don't. I think.
It's not Dan Marino, is it?
No.
It's not.
No, it's not Kurt Warner. It's. Yeah. I don't get it either. I'm with you. I don't think he's going to be there. Brent sounds like he's going to be a stopgap coach. I think we all think he is here. This could be a joke. And this is a team that expects to win. They can't afford to slip into irrelevancy just because of where they are. It's so hard to recruit in Birmingham with having Alabama and Auburn nearby. You've got to be a respective team, and they will want that. So the 2022 record, the wins were at home to Alabama A&M, Georgia Southern, Middle Tennessee, Charlotte, North Texas, away at Louisiana Tech, and then they won against Miami, Ohio in the bowl game. They were in the not Hawaii Bowl, the Bahamas Bowl. So they got the trip out to the Bahamas there, but they underachieved last season. Losses away at Liberty, away at Rice, away at Western Kentucky, away at Florida Atlantic, away at UTSA, away at LSU. So basically lost every single away game and won every single home game. Home comforts and all. The stats for the team, they weren't bad. 33rd on total offense with 440 yards. 48th on total defense with 360.8 yards. So they had top 50 units on both sides of the ball. But then you sort of see something. Scoring offense was 53rd, so 20 points below where the total was. 30 points per game. Scoring defense was 42nd. So that's 23 points per game. So they were scoring a touchdown per game more on average, which is a fair old whack. Rushing offense was 8th in the country. 235 yards per game, 32 touchdowns, 5.8 yards per carry. We all know who that was down to. Rushing defense was 87th. They gave up 165 yards per game, 23 touchdowns, 4.56 yards per carry. Passing offense was 104th. 202 yards per game, 15 touchdowns. Passing defense, though, was 21st. Gave up just 195 yards per game and 16 touchdowns. Sacks, they were 87th with 25. Tackles for loss, they were 109th with 62. So again, another team struggling to create pressure off the D-line. Offensive line was decent. Only gave up 21 sacks on the year, which was 40th, and 71 tackles for loss, which was 61st. They were even in turnover margin. They were 67th. They gained 18. They lost 18. They were incredibly imbalanced, this team were. UAB for years run the ball incredibly well, but always struggled a bit more in the passing game. And that's where these losses come in, isn't it? Again, you can punch it on the ground, but you've got to have the passing game to go with it to succeed.
Yeah, the numbers across the board, yeah, I'd say they're very respectable. But yeah, when a team decided to put 9 or 10 players in the box and they decided to shut down their star weapon, there was no plan B. And yeah, passing through the air is what cost them because, there or lack of. Because when a team didn't let them decide to dominate on the ground, then they struggled to try to beat them teams through the air. And yeah, their offense was good, it was powerful, but it was one-dimensional. And that one dimension kind of went like Zayn Malik and kind of left the one direction. So yeah, we know who's gone and what they have to replace, but they need to become more balanced. If anything, like I say, they've got to sort the passing offense. Teams, we say this week in week out. Like I say, you look at the service academies, you can only win so many games from running the ball because when someone comes into town and they punch you in the face and they slam the door shut, and you can't run the ball, it's game over. It's lights out. Yeah, and their passing defense was, like I said, was really good, but their passing offense, it sucked. Right, so Trent has got a hell of a job on because they were some really respectable numbers, and they've got some really high standards to keep. But he's also got a glaring issue to try fix. So that's a hard recipe for someone vastly inexperienced.
Yep, and he's another guy who's inheriting, a backup quarterback, a quarterback in waiting rather than a starter. So the quarterback next year will be Jacob Zeno, 6'4", 215 pounds, good makeup there. He was Dylan Hopkins' backup last season. Dylan Hopkins obviously went to New Mexico with his OC, who's about to usurp the head coach there. He spent 3 years at Baylor prior to this, but saw next to no game time there. Last season he had a bit of action, threw for 722 yards, 5 touchdowns and 3 picks, had 138 yards and a touchdown on the ground, had 3 fumbles. He only has 1,000 passing yards entering year 5, so he will still be a relatively new starter. The team went 0-3 in games he started or played majority snaps, and if he doesn't do so well, they bought in Landry Liddy from Louisiana Tech to provide competition. So again, this is kind of the same problem Tulsa face. It's a quarterback who's been in the system, he's been there, but he's coming in with not many starts, not much in there, and he's got a lot of learning to do very quickly for a program that expects to win games.
Usually, it's a bad sign if a quarterback has been at a team his whole life and is yet to win the starting job. Like say, like 4.5 years, and he's had to wait his turn. More often than not, when they finally get their chance, they don't suddenly turn into Patrick Mahomes with like a year and a half of eligibility. By now, they should have taken it by the scruff of the neck and won it. And as you said, 0-3 in games he started or played the majority of the snaps in. So he's already got a losing record to his name despite little experience. So there's not much to hang his hat to, and he's got an inexperienced head coach that's not brought a quarterback with him. So is it the blind leading the blind? I think it will be between head coach and quarterback. They're going to have to get on, and they're going to have to find a way to get through this.
Yeah, so it's going to be tough for them. And the season preview in general here, I mean, we are firmly entering the land of the unknown here. This is a program with big aspirations, putting their future into someone who has no experience at this level. Like I said, Dilfer will likely be able to recruit well, and his QB development should be good. But outside of that, it's all a mystery. So the offense, it's going to be led by a new offensive coordinator, Alex Mortensen. Fun fact, he is the son of ESPN analyst Chris Mortensen. So, bet you didn't know he had a son who was an offensive coordinator in college football. He has spent the last 5 years at Alabama as an analyst. Zeno is a new starting quarterback. He has talent, but he's going to need the pieces in place around him. UAB is always famed for its running attack, but it's losing star man Dwayne McBride. a lot of people's draft crushers last year. He had over 1,700 yards on the ground last year. However, what a lot of people don't know, this team actually had 2 1,000-yard guys last year. The second of them, Jermaine Brown Jr., is coming back, and he will be the main man here, and he's got a lot of production behind him. But behind him, it does sit a big group of redshirt transfers and incumbents on this team who have been sitting behind him and Dwayne McBride. So, one top guy, not much depth behind him at the minute. However, they do have a really big problem. So that offensive line that absolutely crushed it in the run game last year and was pretty high level in the pass in pass pro as well, it's gone. And when I mean it's gone, it's all gone. The right guard Quincy McGee transferred to Ole Miss. Everybody else ran out of eligibility. So they are going to be finding 5 new starters for the offensive line this year. The offensive tackle Will Parker has transferred in from Tennessee. He's on the depth chart as a starting right tackle, but he's seen very minimal snaps for the Vols. All the other guys are redshirts who have been developing in the system but have very little game time. So it's going to be interesting to see how quick they pick things up. Obviously, UAB, they trained the ground game really well. So in that regard, it may get going quicker than expected. But it's not ideal for a team that wants to win new games that they're betting in an entire new starting offensive line. The leading receiver, Trey Shropshire, also ran out of eligibility after 900 yards last season.
Very good.
Yeah, he was. But the room returns all the other main guys. You've got Taywan Palmer there. He had nearly 500 yards himself. They got a load of portal receivers. Dazelin Warshawn from Auburn, Brandon Buckhalter from Ole Miss, Malachi Holt-Bennett from Indiana. They've all come from Power 5 programs seeking an opportunity in Dilfer's system. The defense ranks 131st in returning production. Just 37% of that defense is back. The new DC is Sion Taufowu. He was Dilfer's defensive guy at Lipscomb. He also has no experience at collegiate level. So not only is the head coach a complete novice, but he's brought his defensive coordinator from high school with him who has also never coached at this level. And he's going to be working with the defense, which is expected to be at least half made up of red shirts when it comes to their starters. They've got Drew Tuazama. He's a good pass rusher they can build around. He's 6'5", 285 pounds. Half a dozen sacks, half a dozen tackles for loss last year. They've got Michael Banks, who is a hybrid. He plays more on the edge, but they've got to get the big play numbers up big time. They've got good support on the interior. You've got Fish McWilliams and Tyreek Howard. They're 2 big, beefy 300-pounders who will occupy the run and blockers in the middle. But they do need more guys to come and show up on the line this year. The linebacker room has lost all its major starters. You've got Jackson Bratton, who will likely be the new leader there, made up of rotational guys working their way in and transfers. They've got Desmond Little, who had snaps for LSU last season. They've got James Smyer, who comes from Marshall. But again, all new guys in there. The secondary lost safety Jalen Key to Alabama. He was, I'm not going to use an Ash joke there, but he was a big part of that secondary last year. He's gone to be with Nick Saban. They do have a good pair of starters in Keandre Swoops and Damian Miller, but the depth room is all red shirts. Again, the corner room, however, that's real short on starting experience altogether. Nearly all of them are red shirts. However, they did get Incarnate Word starting cornerback Brian Mays out the portal, and he was an absolute stud last year in the FCS. He likely is going to walk straight into one of those starting spots there. So, this is an awful lot of change for UAB this year. If they can stay true to the running game and generate some pass rush, it might not be too bad, but when you're a running team and you're replacing your entire offensive line and nearly everything on defense, it's not good.
No. And you know, full credit to Brown Jr. for not hitting the portal. Like, he could have hit the portal and probably got a score with an offensive line. An offensive 1,000-yard backup. But he's decided that he wants to be part of this project. Will he end up regretting it come the end of the season? I'm probably going to lean towards yes. As you say, no offensive line. It's going to be like an episode of The Bachelor. Dilfer's just going to be handing out roses to anyone that's like over 300 pounds and 6'4". Like, please protect him. But I'd have loved to see this on Hard Knocks. Like, we should start getting college teams like Trent Dilfer's UAB. Like, let's just see how they do. I'd have loved to watch them operate this year. Do I feel better knowing that he's bringing a defensive coordinator with no experience that he's worked with? I don't know. Maybe a little bit. At least he's not in this on his own. But also a guy, that not a lot to work with. They've lost a lot of their weapons. Like, expectations are going to be very low, and that's not a bad thing. At least they know that they're working with bare bones and pretty much start from scratch. So there's not going to be that much pressure on him, but he's gonna. I just hope he keeps his head down. I hope there's no controversies with this year. He can't afford to say anything wrong or get in any trouble. But yeah, it's going to be an old slog for the players that are returning and that are trying to think about being drafted. Like I say, it's going to be hard, but they could stand out on a really bad team. Like I say, so they just have to pound the rock this year and make your forward line and just run the ball as hard as they can, and then hope some of the defenders just can stand up on their own and put in individual performances. But yeah, the makings of a team there is just not there right now. And as you say, a big team, a team with a large reputation. Everyone knows the Blazers, like I say, because they scrapped football for a while. They've only been back like 4 years, so they're in a rebirth. They're a Phoenix team, a big stadium, like I said, brand new, like throwing money about their boosters, like that, and they expect results and quickly. So there's going to be a lot of eyes from the nation on this team this year. So they're going to have to deliver and quickly. They're not going to get a grace period.
Yeah, exactly. I think, you know what? You've got me thinking that you've made that Bachelor reference. I'm just thinking, how great would it be if you're a guy who's committing. You've got Nick Saban, Jim Harbaugh, and Ryan Day like in a line, and you're making a commitment, and you've got to give the rose to the head coach of your choice. Like, with this rose, I do give thee. I'm going to be part of your football. That would be amazing. I need to see somebody do that. Line up all their potential head coaches and give them a rose as part of their commitment. That we need to see that happen.
Don't just be in the hot tub in your swimming shorts. Come join me over here.
Yeah. Oh god! I think we've come onto something there. We need to find something like that.
It's gonna be fun. I can't wait to watch. I'm gonna keep tabs on this year.
Yeah, the Dilfer experience at UAB is going to be quite something. Megan is in the chat. Hope you are doing well, Megan, our resident Seahawks fan in the building. Hope you are well there. Brent goes, sounds like another Colby guy. I like his dedication in regards to the running back. Yeah, he's showing massive commitment there this year. And if he has another 1,000-yard season in this team with a brand new offensive line, the world gonna be his oyster there. Megan says, make that happen. Yeah, we need to have a Bachelor version for the commitment of a player to college football. We are gonna make that one happen. So the schedule. The non-con, they're at home to North Carolina A&T on week 0, so some HBCU action there. Then they have a bye. They're away at Georgia Southern, at home to Louisiana. Oh, and then they're away at Georgia. So, yeah, enjoy that one, lads. Then the conference schedule. Yeesh. You're at home to Tulane. Sorry. You're at home to Tulane, conference champions. Then you're at home to USF, which you could win. But then you're away at UTSA, who are 2-time C-USA Champions. At home to Memphis, who are in a win-now year. At home to Florida Atlantic and Tom Herman, who are in a win-now year. You're away at Navy. You're going to get smacked in the face by them. You're at home to Temple, who are ascending. Oh, and then you're away at North Texas to finish off the season there. It's brutal. That schedule, Ryan. You're facing 2 conference champions in your first 3 conference games, and it just doesn't really get better from that point.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, the North Carolina, those A&T Aggies week 1 and week 0, they will be licking their lips thinking, we could take a scalp here. We could shut Dilfer down in week 1. Like I said, that is a huge potential slip up. That will not be a first game that you will want to. A lot of eyes as well, like I say, because there's only a few weeks, week 0. they'll go in that game, like I said, with tons of confidence, thinking this team is in a total tear it down state. So, yeah, that's going to be an interesting one to see. If they were to lose the A&T Aggies, it'll be a long year. It could be winless.
Yeah, and one thing about the HBCU teams, they'll smack you in the face. In the trenches, they're violent, and they get after you with strength. They will put you down on your ass. We saw some really good offensive linemen coming out of their ranks last year. And for a lot of guys who are going to be starting for the first time, they're not going to like that. They're not going to like people getting in the face, getting aggressive with them. And, North Carolina A&T are a good team. They're the team of Dave, our favourite player, our favourite guy from Panthers Nation podcast. So, yeah, Brad Holmes is alum as well. So, gonna be interesting there. The player to watch I've got, so the cornerback Brian Mays, I mentioned him, he's 6'1", 185 pounds. There's going to be a lot of attention on Dilfer and UAB this year, which will give their players, the ones who are in there as veterans, time to shine. Mays is coming off a wonderful season in the FCS for Incarnate Word. He's going to have prime time to shine for the Blazers defense. He had 51 total tackles, 14 run stops. He had an interception, 6 pass breakups, and in coverage, he only gave up 31 catches on 65 targets. About 46% rate there. That is really good. There is some cleaning up for him to do, especially on penalties. He had 11 penalties given against him last year, so a little grabby, but there may be a transition period in the level of quality, but talent shines. I watched Incarnate Word last year, and they were a good side, and this is a good cornerback, so Brian Mays is the guy you want to keep your eye out on there. And rounding this all off, finishing off the American, my favourite team. I love these guys, I love their coach, I backed them to win their conference last year, and they did. We've got the University of Texas San Antonio Roadrunners, also known as UTSA, established 2011. They play at the Alamo Dome. I don't know why I said that to begin with. I'm sorry, Texans. That was wrong of me. The 2021 season, they went 12-2, 7-1 in the C-USA. They were the C-USA Champions. 2022, they went 11-3. They were 8-0 in the C-USA. And they were C-USA Champions. They are back-to-back guys. The rivalry is with Texas State, the I-35 rivalry. And the coach, Jeff Traylor. It's his 3rd season. He's 55, another offensive mind, and he's won a conference. He's won a championship every year. He's been a head coach. 25-year coach in high school before moving into the college game in 2015. First stop was with Texas. He was tight end and special teams coach before stopping off at SMU and Arkansas in the same position as running back coach and assistant head coach. Took him just 5 years to get his first head coach job in college football, and to be honest, he's made it look real easy so far. In his first season at UTSA, he went 7-5 with a 2nd place finish in the West Division. Sorry, this is his 4th season he's coming into, not his 3rd. First season 7-5, 2nd in the West in the CUSA. Then in 2021, UTSA went crazy. They went 12-2. 7-1 conference record. They were undefeated till the last week of the season when they weirdly got blown out by North Texas, but they took down Bailey Zappi's air raid system at Western Kentucky twice en route to a C-USA Championship. And they didn't rest on their laurels. They didn't win one and then sit back. They had a good amount of the championship winning team back last year. We predicted they would retain the crown, and that's exactly what they did. And what's more impressive, they completely ran the conference schedule this time after previous years' mishap against North Texas. And for vengeance, they were the team they ultimately destroyed in the championship game to go 2 in a row for the CUSA title. Jeff Traylor, he runs a tight, disciplined ship. His UTSA teams are aggressive, they are hard to beat, and they've got their star quarterback and 70% of last year's team coming back. They will not be looking in for a bedding in period in the American. They will be going for the title straight away. They are number 2 in media polls. They are number 1 in predicted roster strength in the conference. Jeff Traylor, he could be on the verge of something special. 3 in a row. Not hard, this head coaching malarkey, is it?
Nope. He makes it look very easy. And yeah, they ain't swapped conferences to make up the numbers. They've come here straight away to spoil the party. And if they do, if he can lead them to another title, I can't see UTSA being able to hold on to him. I think the Power 5 will be calling, and I think his contract will be getting bought out if he has another good year, like I say, because if you do it twice in one conference, yeah, that's good. You do it 3 times in 2 different conferences, back-to-back years, like, they'll be like, yeah, he's the real deal. Like, someone's going to come get him from, like, the Big 10 and the Big 12. Like, let's see what he can really do with some money and some power behind him. And Texas is a hard place to win, and it's a hard place to recruit because it's the most congested state, I think, for football teams. Yeah, it has to be in Division 1, but yeah, he is the real deal, and yeah, he's already sent stars to the draft, like I say. And see McCormick, we saw him play the other night in pre-season, like I say.
Getting tuddies.
Without him, he's gone, but he's still got, like I say, the big man under centre, coming off one of the best years of a quarterback for the last few years, like I say, just money. And those two, they're just on the same wavelength, and they just have been commanding in his time together.
Yeah, it's just been so impressive what he's done there, and the way he's adapted as well. And we'll go through it now just to show you how he's adapted. We talk about these teams who are to run like UAB, who run all the time and don't adapt their offense. Traylor adapted his last year, so the record, the wins were away at Army, at home to Texas Southern, away at Middle Tennessee, at home to Western Kentucky, away to Florida International, at home to North Texas in the regular season, away at UAB, at home to Louisiana Tech, away at Rice, at home to UTEP, and then versus North Texas in the championship game. The only losses, at home to Houston, away to Texas, the Longhorns, and against Troy in the bowl game. They did lose their bowl game. The 2022 stats, total offense, 12th in the nation, 12th best total offense in the nation, 476 yards per game. The defense was 74th, it was enough, 387.2 yards per game. The scoring offense, they were 14th, they were just a smidge under 37 points they scored up every game on average. Scoring defense was 59th, so a lot better than the total, they gave up less than 30 points per game. Rushing offense was 50th, healthy 175 yards. Rushing defense was 59th, 143 yards per game, so pretty good. The passing offense was 13th in the nation. They had just over 300 yards per game on average, and they had 34 touchdowns through the air. Passing defense was a little iffy, 92nd, 243 yards and 21 touchdowns. They were 97th in team sacks with just 25, but they were 36th on tackles for loss with 92. Sacks allowed, they were 52nd with 26. Tackles for loss allowed, they were 32nd with 65. So the offensive line was good. D-line was good, but just not in sacks there. Turnover margin, there was 60th. Gained 22, lost 20. And what was very impressive, right? 2 years ago, we said this was the running offense. Like you said, Sincere McCormack, they ran the ball a lot and used Frank Harris sparingly. And when he left last year, you're like, what are they going to do now he's not there? He went to Frank Harris. He switched it round all of a sudden last year. It was the passing that was the centre point of that offense, and the running game complemented that. He adapted to the situation he was in with the talent he had, and that offense once again was just amazing, but this time for passing, not running.
We've talked about teams earlier where the stats and that were really good, but it didn't translate to wins. Those numbers, average, below average, not very good, but they found a winning recipe. Like I say, before it's through the ground, now it's through the air. Like I say, they sent some receivers to the draft, sent running back to the draft in the last 2 years. They found different ways to win, and ultimately it comes down, like I say, they've got their guy. Not for much longer, because he's going to make a very interesting pro prospect. I think he's going to be an interesting to see when he gets the combine next year, when he goes pro, like how it displays. But yeah, they've managed to flip the script, prove that they're not one-dimensional, and that when they lose their big name running back, that quarterback is able to step up and then put the team on his shoulders and then beat teams through the air. So yeah, different ways. There's always more than one way to skin a rabbit, and they are proof of it because they've delivered now back-to-back times with different types of offense.
Exactly. Thanks for dropping in, Meg.
It's just good enough.
Yeah.
Like I said, they didn't have to rely on it.
No. Thanks for dropping in, Megan. Hope you do well. Enjoy your day. Yeah, that's it. And the defence was the same last year. It's always been middle of the pack, but it's always been just good enough to give the offence the chance to win games. And sometimes that's all you need. One elite unit, one okay unit. That's enough, as long as you get them in tandem together. So it's really impressive. Now, going into their first season in the American, the quarterback, I mean, some of the quarterbacks we've talked about in this conference are great, and this is one of the standouts here. Frank Harris, love him to death, 6 foot, 205 pounds. It's his final season, as Ryan mentioned. He'll be 24 by the time he's done. It's his 7th year in college altogether. He started very young. He's been UTSA starter for several seasons now. 2022 was a monster year for him. He took up all the slack left behind by Sincere McCormack and more, and led the offense to its 2nd championship in a row. So he passed for 4,066 yards on nearly 70% completion, 32 touchdowns, just 9 picks. He had 740 yards on the ground with 9 touchdowns and 8 fumbles, although that was down from 13 the year before, so could still stand to get the turnover number down a little bit, but to be honest, he's getting that many touchdowns, it doesn't really matter. In total, he's got 9,300 passing yards and 2,200 rushing yards for the Road Runners, and he's going to be looking to go out with a bang. He basically owns every quarterback record at the school, and by the time he's done, it's going to take someone truly exceptional to come close to breaking any of them. I think, like, single game passing records, he's got like 7 of the top 10 there, and he leads everything else. He is a true dual threat with a live arm who can hit you anywhere and everywhere, and that was the thing with him last year, right? Now with Sincere gone, there were always talks about him going deep downfield and whether he could do that. Last year, he answered all those questions. He is a do-it-all guy, and he has a shot of making it in the pros.
Yeah, to look at him, you don't think a lot. He's short, he's skinny, he's old by quarterback standards, but none of those things to date have held him back. And whether it's quarterback, whether it's a running back, whether it's some type of Swiss Army knife like Malik Cunningham or Trace McSorley at the pro level, you'd like to think he will somehow find a way to play some part of pro football, despite what they'll say about his age and his size. Like I say, he's going to be 12,500, 13,000 passing yards when he's done. Best Road Runners QB in history. One of the best UTSA players probably of all time when all is said and done. Whatever happens this year. And yeah, he's going to want to go out on top. He's going to want to go out with another ring. And he's so far, yeah, everything's got better. Just fine tune it, yeah. Just clean up on the fumbles again, if possible. And yeah, he's the best. He's the best quarterback in the whole conference. Yeah, and like I say, he wasn't even here last year. I can't put anyone above him because he's just coming in with like such a stellar resume.
Yeah, in terms of winning the whole thing, and that's going to be the key for them this year. And for the team in general, there are a lot of teams competing here, but these guys have been there and done that. And I know it's not this conference, but they ain't going to care. You know, trailers teams don't care. They will come in and they will hit you hard regardless of how long you've been there. So the season preview in general, as we've mentioned, UTSA are a juggernaut right now. They are banging form, hungry for championship, and quite frankly, they're coming into a disorientated AAC that is ripe for the picking. There's no power structure here. Everyone is there. This is the last year for their star quarterback and some of their bigger players. Is this team capable of one last hurrah and winning it all before they will have to reset next year? That's just a point of life. They will have to reset. Or will they hit a wall of reality and discover that it indeed will take time to bed into the AAC? In which case it might take some time for them to get into it. Which way will they go? They've got a new offensive coordinator for the 3rd year in a row. They keep getting poached because of how good the offense is, but it doesn't really seem to affect them. They just keep producing guys. The tight end coach, Justin Burke, got a promotion. He'll know the scheme off by heart. Harris, as Ryan said, may well be the best quarterback in the conference. I think we agree that he is. With him on the field, they can win any game. And again, he's protected by 4 of the 5 members of the offensive line that was solid across the board last season. All of those guys are all-star caliber players. If they continue to grow, it's going to be hard to get at Harris this year. He has a lot of playmakers to throw at as well. So yes, they did lose star Zachary Franklin to Ole Miss, which is a loss. And he will be a must-watch over at Ole Miss. He'll have a fantastic year. But they bring Joshua Cephas back. He had nearly 1,000 yards last season. They've got DeCorian Clark, who had 750 yards and 8 touchdowns on 51 receptions. They've got an all-star caliber tight end in Oscar Cardenas. He had 450 yards and a couple of touchdowns himself last year. And they've brought in a real threat from the JUCO ranks as well in Willie McCoy. He's a speed threat, so not only did he have 600 yards at over 20 yards per catch last season, but he's a dangerous returner. He had 500 yards and 2 return touchdowns in the return game last year. He is going to have plenty to throw at. The running back room is in good nick as well. You've got Kavorian Barnes. He had 845 yards running at over 6 yards a clip last year. He had nearly 1,000 yards from scrimmage altogether. He will lead the line. He's going to be backed up by Vanderbilt transfer Rocco Griffin. He was the starter for Vanderbilt in 2021, had over 500 yards there. Injury sort of derailed his 2022 season, so he's going to be a great running back too if those injury issues stay away, which they are. He's been training all off-season, so they've got a good 1-2 punch at the back there. That offense could be deadly. Defense has always been just good enough to help carry the offense to titles, and it's bringing back plenty of experience this year. But with the opposition upgrade, it is going to need to come to play a little bit more this time. Defensive line is mostly intact. It was young with multiple transfers bedding in last year, so you're going to hope that it's a much more cohesive unit this time. You've got Brandon Brown. He had 6.5 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks from the interior. And Joe Evans, he had 3.5 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks. You want those numbers to go up this year, but it's a good starting point. They do need to find a bona fide pass rusher. They've not had one in a little while. And again, they've not brought in any help from the portal. So they must have faith in the guys who are there. But who am I to doubt him when he's won 2 championships in a row? The linebacker room, however, formidable. Trey Moore is a superstar on this team. 18 tackles for loss, 8 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 6 pass breakups last year. UTSA are one of these teams, they like sort of these linebacker safety hybrid types who do a little bit of everything. You've got Avery Morris and Jamal Ligon who are very productive guys as well. It's very hard to fight your way past this unit if you get through the defensive line. Secondary has bona fide playmakers all over as well. You've got Nick Troy Fortune. He's an all-star cornerback. Super productive career. Had 3 years at West Virginia before that. You've got Daiwan Griffin. He's an emerging star player opposite him. You've got Cam Alexander, who's transferred in from Sam Houston. He is a hell of a coverage corner. He lost half of last year to injury, but if he picks it back up, that room is talented. And the safeties might be even better. So Rashad Wisdom, he's the incumbent there. He's great in the safety room. He also lost the back end of last year to injury, but he's ready to go again. And they've paired him with another Incarnate Word transfer. That Incarnate Word secondary was very good last year. And I completely missed his name out from there. Why did I not put his name in? Anyhow, they do have an Incarnate Word transfer and starter from last year. Had 10 pass breakups, 3 picks. So he's trying his luck in the AAC. And you've also got Kalichi Niwachuku. He was a productive starter at safety as well for UTSA last year. So again, room is loaded with talent. The only question mark that really hangs over this team is that D-line. If they can even be half good this year, this defense is going to be more than good enough to prop this offense up going forward, right? It's a team who seems the most complete and most ready to go this year, and they know how to win a conference.
Yeah, it's returning so much talent, which a lot of the teams we've spoke about just aren't. They've just been gutted. They've just run out of eligibility or jump ship. They've brought over most of their important players from the previous conference. They've decided to come with them. So, yeah, the foundations, the blueprint, the players, the talent, it's all there. Like I said, another offensive coordinator. Like I say, the last 2 have both been first timers and they've won a championship can it be third time lucky? Is that the only thing that's going to hold them back? Not gelling with an offensive coordinator? I suppose we'll see. But yeah, like there's absolutely no reason this team can't come in and instantly be trying to win a title. Like everything's there already. Like I said, the talent, the coaching, they've just not lost a lot. Like I said, and that sometimes teams that just don't lose a lot are just built to win.
And it's having depth. Like I say, you lose Zachary Franklin, you think you're screwed, and it's like, well, no, actually, they've got a lot behind. So it's all about having those next guys, spreading out the production, so that if you lose somebody, it doesn't hurt as much, and that seems to be the thing for them. Elliot Davison is the incarnate ward safety. I need to give his name out there just to prove I'm not making these things up. I went back and found out. So, yeah, he's the safety who's coming over. He's very good. Looking forward to seeing him this year. So the schedule, they don't play week 0. Out of conference, they're away at Houston, at home to Texas State and Army, and then they're away at Tennessee. That could be a fun game there. Then they have their bye. So the conference, they're away at Temple, at home to UAB, away to Florida Atlantic, at home to East Carolina, away at North Texas, at home to Rice, at home to USF, and away at Tulane. They get a lot of their C-USA opponents last year who they trampled over, and they again avoid like teams like SMU, the big ones up there. You know, you get East Carolina at home, who are one of the better teams, and then you're away at Tulane in the last week. I don't know about you, but that feels like championship decider. That feels like they might play that game 2 times in a row. It could be them too.
Yeah, that could be like a winning. That could be like a top 25. That could be like an AP poll kind of game, like where they're both in like the late 20s. No one will phase them on that schedule at all. They won't bother about anyone. They'll have already circled Tulane and thought, yeah, everything will be on the line for that game. Like I say, it'll be a winning in or like lose and go home. That is what they'll be preparing for. They'll be preparing for a shootout with Tulane to potentially decide their fate, and they'll be okay with that. They'll think they match up pretty well against that. Other than that, as like I say, as long as they don't pick up any injuries, like I say, I think they should adapt to life and hit the ground running really quickly. I don't see many teams that we've listed that are going to give them too many issues. The adjustment between, like I say, what they used to play in and the AAC, I don't think it's that big a gap. I think it'll be bridged pretty quickly. So 9-10 wins, very achievable. But they might not even be happy with that.
No. I mean, after that Temple opener, they've got 4 C-USA teams who've come with them in the next 5 games. So it's like they've beaten those guys. They've been there. They've done that already. You know, then you got East Carolina in the middle, who are in the middle of a rebuild. So very easy for them to make traction and make goals quick. I really like that. I know we're going to get to the prediction show in a week or so when we do all this, but I feel pretty confident in what I'm going to say regarding the American. The player to watch, I've mentioned him already, the outside linebacker / safety, Trey Moore. This guy's a superstar on this team. I say that, you know, meaningfully. He's 6'3", 230 pounds. I read the stats a minute ago. But just to go back through them, 18 tackles for loss, 8 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 6 pass breakups. Dude's a hybrid who can just do both positions in the secondary or linebacker so well. He's going to open everything up for this Roadrunner defense. Last year, that was his first year as a starter last year. He's only going to get better. He's going to spearhead the QB pressure attack this year, that's where UTSA have to open up the game. Teams are going to be paying him a lot more attention. That's going to open up holes for the D-line to exploit. So the numbers may go down, personally soloy for him, but then they'll go up for the team. He's invaluable against the run. He's a productive coverage linebacker because of his work at safety. You know, when these do-it-all guys play at a high level, they can truly be special players. And this guy just oozes confidence that last year wasn't a flash in the pan. UTSA are going to win the AAC this year. He needs to be great again, and I think he is. So Trey Moore is the guy to watch on that UTSA team. With that said, that is everybody. That is the American we are all done in terms of our teams there. Thank you to everyone. Hope you've enjoyed that. Hope you've learnt a lot about the American there. This is going to be a very fun conference this year, right? So I just want to quickly go through the media poll for you to say what the media's thinking this year. So Tulane are ranked number 1, UTSA are number 2, SMU are 3rd, Memphis are 4th, Florida Atlantic 5th, East Carolina 6th, North Carolina 7th, and then we've got UAB in 8th. The first place votes, 20 went to Tulane, 9 went to UTSA, 3 went to SMU, 1 went to Memphis, and then there isn't a first place vote until number 8. Someone voted a first place finish for UAB. I think Trent Dilfer hacked the system and voted for himself, but it's a competitive conference this year. I think there's going to be some great teams. You've got some great head coaches in here. Tom Herman, Jeff Traylor, all these guys. This might be the group of 5 conference to watch this year in terms of like talent and the unknown.
Yeah, there's a strong chance that this conference sends them someone to a New Year's Six bowl. I think there's a good chance they can be the conference to do it. I think people are riding SMU a little bit hard. The rankings. I think teams are sleeping on Florida Atlantic. I kind of feel like they're a team to watch. Like, what were they, 5th or the 6th? Yeah, I feel like they could have got a first place vote. Like I say, SMU got a lot, but I feel like they'll be pretty competitive this year.
Yeah, I just think there's a lot around. I'm just gonna. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. Let's just say it that way. Yeah. Brent's just asked, the 3rd string quarterback for Tulane that I love, is he starting this year? Can't remember his name. That was Kai Horton. Let me just bring up Tulane's depth chart. I think he's still there. Let me just check. Am I right? Quarterback. He's number 2 on their roster this year, Brent. So the 3rd string quarterback you love so much, he's backing up Michael Pratt. So if Michael Pratt goes down injured, he will be in there. So yeah, Kai Horton, 2nd string for Tulane this year. Right. If anyone's got any questions before we get out of here, just let us know very quickly. I'm just going to go through all the razzle dazzle, all the bits. So the next podcasts, the main podcast. You can find us on Saturday. We will be here giving our live reactions to the Jacksonville Jaguars game, Lions' 2nd preseason game. But if you can't make that, then next Monday we'll be doing the proper breakdown of it and the breakdown of training camp and all that stuff, as we have been doing before there. College football podcast will be back very soon. We've got a lot in the works before the season starts. Season's coming up really quick, actually, so we've still got the MAC to do. That's it for the G5. We're all done then. We'll probably just do a Power 5 show, like put them all together, and we'll find something fun to do for that. But yeah, we've got a lot coming up there. So yeah, that's about everything. I don't think there's any other questions knocking around. Oh yeah, Brent did ask us earlier about EJ Warner. How many passing yards do you think he's going to get this year in that team, that Temple side?
I think he'll have less. I think he'll have like 3,000.
Oh, he had 3,000 this year.
I think he'll have less turnovers.
So you're going 3,000 again. I'm gonna go the same. I reckon he can get to 3,000 again on that team. Got big hopes for EJ Warner there. So yeah, that's what we think with him. Right, let's get out of here. We've been going a while. Appreciate you all who've joined us. Like I say, I hope you've enjoyed our breakdown of the American. Hopefully it's given you some players to watch out for. This is going to be there's some very talented players in this conference this year. We are certainly looking forward to seeing it, and we'll see you again very soon. You can find us all over the internet, YouTube, Twitch, all that good stuff, Roar of the Lions UK, Twitter, come follow us on there. The website, www.roarofthelionsuk.com. You'll find us on there. Ash will be starting his preview series soon. We'll be having articles coming up. So, Yeah, you can support us in all those good ways. This remains me to thank Ryan, to thank Hank once more, and we shall see you again real soon. Thank you, Grandizer. Thanks, Brent. Thanks, Megan. Thanks, all of you who've joined in with us. We love you all. We appreciate you all. And we shall see you again soon. One Pride.